Okay,
So this is our second one.
all right, that's fine.
We think the
Yeah.
first one went really well, right?
I know.
Yeah.
I'm still doing it.
I think the feedback was good.
Yeah. I mean, my husband
Now, this
actually is
really one
in the
where we
drop
talk
program
a
with
lot,
Florida Fish and Wildlife right
rather
now.
than
Hey,
the other
Tom.
one kind of
Right.
makes
Yeah,
sense.
32 years.
Right.
I'm like,
And I thought that it would be a good
he works for the Research Institute, so
contrast
he
to
runs the
compare
Melbourne.
to,
He
like,
runs the
email
Hey,
the
Tom.
whole
out
field
said,
research
this
stuff.
was our business meeting. You can see the
Over,
flow and
Tom.
how
Yeah.
Melbourne Beach.
efficient it
Yeah.
is.
So.
This is our
Tom.
opportunity for
Over here.
workshop
Hello.
for the
Over here.
I know. I did it. A
Yeah, I
lot
like that.
Do we
before
know
the,
why
I think
it
for 19
started
years
at
being able
Public
to
We
do
Heard last
national
time?
I like that.
And then invite
Okay,
them to
so
the
I
start.
thought I
Okay.
Did I start with you like
The
way
channel?
back
There's too
when
many
you
other things going on.
organized
Okay.
that? He was the South. That was the first person I met. I was like, wow.
All right, I'm going to call to order the Town Commission Workshop on February 9th, 2021 at 5:30 PM. If we could all stand for the pledge, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, April, can we do roll call, please?
Mayor Mayfield,
Here.
Vice Mayor Campo,
Here.
Commissioner Fender,
Here.
Commissioner Kurzman,
Yes.
Commissioner Tompek.
Here.
Okay, before we do additions, deletions, changes to the agenda, just a reminder, this is a non-voting meeting. We're not voting on anything. We do have the town attorney, Glenn, on speaker, joining in. Any additions, deletions, or changes to the agenda? All right, seeing none, we will move on. Before we get to public comment, just a reminder, the public comment guidelines are in the back displayed. They're also on the back of the comment cards. The highlights are they're 3 minutes long, only address the commission as a whole, no dialogue between the commission and the public, but always remember, we're available any other time via email, phone, individually, in person. And the public comment on non-agenda items are due now, before the beginning of the meeting, and the public comment on agenda items are due before the commission starts talking on that topic. And any other comments won't be heard till later, another meeting, or as I said, individually. Okay, any public comment on non-agenda items? April, did you have any by email?
No, ma'am.
Okay. All right, then we will move on to discussion. First item is the conduct of town meetings, and we do have a public comment on that. H.B. Barrett, if you want to come up, please, and say your name and address for the record, please.
H.B. Barrett, 23 East High Point Road. Good afternoon, everybody. Public conduct at commission meetings. I raised the topic about a year and a half ago with a couple of the commissioners and was asked at that time to wait until we had a new town manager prior to your hire. So I want to thank Commissioner Tompek for making the subject an agenda item tonight. I first became concerned about the public's conduct at commission meetings a couple of years ago when sewering South Sewalls Point became a hot topic. This was caused by then Mayor Campo's push to obtain the town a $1.5 million grant from the state of Florida for replacing septic and converting them to sewer. At that time, I was appalled at the conduct of some of our citizens when addressing the commission. As an example, your current ordinance only allows for the presiding officer to reprimand or remove a speaker that is out of line. If the speaker happens to be a friend of the presiding officer, then that speaker may be given more latitude than should be permissible, and currently there's no recourse. In no way am I inferring that Mayor Mayfield would take part in such activity, but at least one mayor in the past I've had my doubts. Your current ordinance lacks sufficient detail and teeth. For improvement, you need look no further than the current policy of the Martin County Board of County Commissioners. And in contrast to your current ordinance about removing or reprimanding a speaker, in Martin County's Board Policy 217, Rules of Procedure, under item J4J, appearance before the commission, either the chair or the majority of the board may reprimand or remove a speaker, which takes the pressure off the presiding officer to be solely responsible to take that action. I recommend that you instruct your town attorney to look at Martin County's policy and use it as a guideline to toughen up your ordinance. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, HB.
All right, that is it for public comments. So Commissioner Tompek, if you wanted to take this away.
Thank you, Mayor. Included in your package tonight is a note that I sent to the town manager in late December, which contains some suggestions in streamlining our commission meetings. And some of this is based on my experience with Fort Pierce Utilities Authority and also with the Fort Pierce City Commission. I thought I would just quickly summarize those suggestions for you. One, that all comment cards for all items must be submitted prior to the start of the meeting. It's distracting having residents continually approaching the town clerk with comment cards throughout the meeting. Second, public comments at the beginning of the meeting should cover agenda items only. This will keep us on track. There's been a couple of cases where we had somebody get up with a specific problem that wasn't related to an agenda item, and we got sidetracked for 15, 20 minutes, a half hour. There should not be separate public comments for each agenda item. This is a particular bottleneck for the conduct of our meetings. Sometimes it seems like the comments are critiquing the presentations. I find them distracting, and I'm sure the speaker does as well. The memo contains some other minor recommendations, some of which are currently being implemented and some that may require further future commission action. Specifically, because of the new audio and video upgrades here in the chamber, I think a lot of these issues have gone away. It's a terrific upgrade. We're really appreciative of that. But we also have the option when when somebody's making a public comment, you don't necessarily need to show them while they're making the comment. And that, prevents people playing to the audience and doing some other things they probably shouldn't be doing. Now, none of the recommendations I'm talking about would limit the public's right to comment on any item. And to the best of my knowledge, and I'm sure Glenn will beat me with a stick if I'm doing something wrong here, none of the proposed changes would violate any statutes or sunshine law requirements. So with that brief background, and with the mayor's concurrence, I'd like to open it up for discussion.
Sure, we can open it up. There's a, Commissioner Tompeck, can I ask you a question?
Sure.
The last one about the agenda packages indexed for easy navigation. I know that there's been some upgrades in our system. Are you talking about the paper ones that we get, or I know there's been upgrades in the system where you can click on the links and be taken to the agenda item.
The only thing I was looking for there, and it may be because I didn't have the correct edition of Adobe Acrobat, is that you should be able to open that up and go to each individual item without having to leaf through the whole package.
I think,
And if that's already in place, then that comment is no longer valid.
if you check it out and can confirm, I believe that works now. You can click on the link in the agenda and be taken to the item. Okay, thank you.
And by the way, just to mention, at the last business meeting we had, the way the town manager had the agenda set up, boy, I thought it was very well done, and the flow of that meeting was much better than,
Okay.
flow of some other meetings earlier on.
Okay. Oh, I don't know which one was first. I'm sorry. Commissioner Kurzman?
Yeah, I appreciate what Commissioner Tompeck has said. The only thing is, even when I've been sitting up here the past couple of years, sometimes there are things that the commission may have overlooked that somebody, prior to the agenda coming up, they caught something. And it's sort of, it's just another opinion sometimes you get. And sometimes those opinions can be very valuable. Like sometimes it could be Joe that makes a comment, and once that comment's made, somebody picks up on something that we might have overlooked, and they'll bring that up to us at that point. And it could be very valid. I understand there are some of these people that come up will just ramble, and it's a lot, sometimes you'll get some stuff that just doesn't make any sense, or it's just concurring what you'll hear week after week. But you will, in some of these meetings, hear something that obtains some value and substance for the commission to listen to, what the individual who might be in the meeting at the time will come out and say. And I think we can, there can be value. I understand sometimes it just delays the meeting, but other times I've found some valuable comments coming from somebody that is in the meeting. And I've been going to these meetings now. It's been about 5 years, and probably 80% of the stuff isn't going to make a difference, but, you know, you do, even if it's 5% of the stuff has some significant value, it's worth hearing from those individuals. I just hate to see it come to an end where prior to something coming up, somebody might hear something or pick up on something. So that's just my opinion on that, but I do understand what you're saying as well.
Thanks. Commissioner Kurzman. Commissioner Campo?
Sorry. Comment and then a question. First of all, I want to thank Commissioner Tompek for passing this along. You know, it's been a while since we've had an election that's been contested, and one of the benefits in democracy, and you can have the Star Spangled Banner music playing in the background anytime, but one of the best things about a democracy is it pushes officials that want to represent government to go out and listen to what people are saying. And all the items that you brought up on the agenda tonight probably reflect your knocking on doors and hearing people. So I think that that's a tremendous benefit for me, the old dog, who hasn't been out there for a couple of years, but I'm sure I'll hear it again. I think I agree with probably your whole memo. I think, like Dave, 1, 2, 3, 4, the fourth item, there should not be public comment during each agenda item. I think that I agree with question and answers of Joe Capra, but it is fun to see him tap dance, you know. But I think, you know, when you look at what's going on, and again, the old society is people just want to be heard, whether it's Black Lives Matter, Me Too, the guy with the fur skin and the Viking hat. I mean, that's all people want to do is to be heard. And when you bottle that up too much, it can be a very combustible situation. And when we're talking about whether the speed limit should be 30 or 35, probably not a big deal. But if we're talking down the road of something really raw and really inflammatory, like perhaps, I don't know, mandatory septic to sewer in all of Sewalls Point, you're going to have some people that want to have their voices heard. And if you don't, then they do things like threaten your professional licenses, threaten public records, ethics violations. I've had all of them, and they do it. So I think there's a little bit of a balance. If people's voices can be heard, and I said time and time again through septic to sewer in North Sewalls Point, maybe a little naively, but you know, we're a family. At the end of the day, we're 1,990 people that try to come together and come up with a resolution. So I agree with everything you've got, but I think we just have to be a little careful when we say there should be not separate comments on each agenda item. I think we'd get into trouble there. I think, questioning and answering the town engineer, I understand what you're saying, but I think, I've been into a lot of these public meetings. They always say every item should have some ability for the public to speak. You just going to get in trouble if you don't do that. I mean, MPO, regional planning, children's council, county commission. So maybe we could just tweak that one a little bit. Or the real question was, you had said there should be an ability for the public to make comments, but then here it says there should not be separate comments. So how did you envision that? I think we can kind of work through some of these things. Thank you.
Commissioner Fender?
So I'll just add to that, and I'm kind of in alignment with Commissioner Campo, but first I'll say I'm super appreciative of HB bringing forward the civility issues, and I'm fully in favor of ensuring that these meetings are chaired civilly and that there is some repercussion of lack of civility in these proceedings. Also, I'm not opposed to any of the points you're bringing, and I think I'm not passionate for or against any one. I think they're awesome, but I would just add to what Commissioner Campo says is that I'm super sensitive to the freedom of speech aspect of it. I sat out there for many years before sitting up here, and it can be intimidating for a new person to our town to come and address the dais themselves, and we want to make sure that whatever civility clause or communication process you put in place, it does feel like the members of the town have the ability to have input into the proceedings that we are partaking. Now, I mean, not only do we get to vote, but we need to represent the voice of the town. And as Commissioner Campo said, some of those issues are going to be a little bit charged. And there are going to be people passionate on both sides. It's good to hear those passionate responses as long as they adhere to what I think HB is bringing forward is the civility of that. We can convey ideas respectfully and politely on both sides of any given issue, short of attacking, bringing people up on charges. So like I said, I will, probably support every single item you bring forward, but I'll probably look at them one individually, and I'll probably vote on it when there's something to vote upon. But I just want to let you know that I'll be listening for the ability to also allow the people to speak as well.
Commissioner Tompak?
Yeah, just to respond to some of the comments here. Some of these items are more highly charged than others, and obviously those items don't just come to the town commission for a vote. They've already gone through a certain amount of vetting, via, some of these conferences that we're having. And I'm not suggesting that we eliminate anybody's ability to make public comments.
I'm sure.
I'd really just like to see it kind of at the beginning of the meeting, which is what we do, and it really works very well. It just helps the flow of the meeting. They've already got a hold of the package, they're already familiar with the issue. They can make the comments before the presentations for us to consider. So we haven't eliminated any of their ability to do that. It just makes the meetings flow easier, that's all.
Perfect.
I just want to add that I appreciate the time put into this, and I know you have a lot of experience in this area. Since I took on the mayoral role, have been trying to implement some of this, and a lot of this is just the placement of when you get to speak as opposed to being allowed to speak at all. And I'm trying to reiterate the rule, the guidelines that non-agenda items at the beginning of the meeting. I know you said the end, but I prefer the beginning because if you have an issue you want to talk about and you don't know when the meeting's going to end, and there are a lot of people that are busy in the evening, this way they know that you can get to the beginning of the meeting, get their public comment on non-agenda item in. And then as long as the agenda item is, the comment card is in before that item is addressed, then they can say their input, but before we discuss. That way there's not the back and forth that you talk about, which I think is helpful for us to run our process smoothly. And then, like I said, every resident is always welcome to email us, call us, catch me on the street, all that stuff. So I appreciate this, and I am taking it to heart and looking to implement it. So thank you. Commissioner Fender?
So just quickly off topic and super politely, we're still in a pandemic, and the time to wear your mask is while we're spraying articulates into the air. I mean, when we're sitting here quietly not speaking is when we should, it doesn't matter if we wear a mask, but when we're talking, we really need to have our masks on, so.
I apologize.
No need to apologize.
No,
I appreciate it.
I get it. Trust me, I'm sorry. All right. Any other comments? All right. Thank you, Commissioner Tompak. And we'll move on to your next item, South Sewalls Point Road speed limits. And I believe there is public comment. I have one here. April, do you want to go first, though?
Sure. First public comment I have is from Joseph Mayer, who says, I would like to comment on the South Sewalls Point Road speed limits. We have lived here in Sewalls Point for about 8 years. 5 of those years were on Sewalls Point Road. During that time, I can't tell you how many times my wife and myself were nearly hit on our own road. Our mailbox was hit twice. We had issues backing out of our driveway. We are now almost built out with young families and children. People like to walk, jog, bike ride, etc., and the 35-mile-an-hour speed limit is too high. Look at Indian River Drive Road in Jensen, same road as Sewalls Point Road. The speed limit is 25 miles per hour. Look at St. Lucie Boulevard in Stewart, 25 miles per hour speed limit. It's long overdue to reduce the speed limit on North and South Sewalls Point Road to 25 miles an hour. Thank you for understanding. The next public comment I have is from Yara Bashor, who says, I am not sure how to submit a comment, but here's my comment. I agree with reducing the speed limit on South Sewalls Point Road to 30 miles per hour. My house is on this road, and I sometimes see cars flying over 40 miles an hour. When I drive at 30 miles an hour as I'm getting close to my home, at times I've had a vehicle right on my tail. I also walk and ride my bicycle around town, and I hesitate to do so on South Sewalls Point Road. It is customary to drive at or slightly over the speed limit. If it is reduced to 30 miles per hour, most will drive 29 to 34 miles per hour. Reducing the speed limit to 25 miles per hour is too low and may cause some impatient people to want to pass a slow driver, and passing on this road would create a very hazardous situation. I also agree that speed bumps are unnecessary at this time. Why are speed limits at 5 miles per hour increments? Can you have, for example, a 29 mile per hour speed limit? Fisher Island in Miami has a 19 mile per hour speed limit in its unique community. Thank you. This comment is from Patricia Avento. I was quite happy to see the speed limit on South Sewalls Point Road on the agenda for this evening's meeting. The speed limit at which vehicles are traveling on this road is terribly dangerous. It is a 2-lane road with minimal shoulders, if any, and a few sections of sidewalk. There are pedestrians and cyclists competing with vehicles for space to navigate on this road. The speed limit on the causeway is 40 miles per hour, and vehicles turning onto South Sewalls Point Road seem to be continuing at that speed, and quite often faster than that. The speed limit on Ocean Boulevard is 35 miles per hour. This is a 4-lane road with one and at certain points 2 additional lanes for turning, with sidewalks on both sides of the road. St. Lucie Boulevard has a speed limit of 20 miles per hour, 25 miles per hour, with speed tables and sidewalks. South Sewalls Point Road is strictly a residential road, and I strongly believe that a lower speed limit is necessary to ensure the safety of all residents. I noticed that River Road has a lower speed limit with many stop signs forcing slower speeds. No road in Sewalls Point is any more or less residential than Sewalls Point Road. A lower speed limit with speed tables and/or stop signs would certainly benefit all of the residents of Sewalls Point.
Thank you, April. And now we have H.B. Barrett. If you could come up again, please, name and address.
H.B. Barrett, 23 East High Point. Seems like I'm going to be the only dissenter to reducing the speed limit. Living in the High Point subdivision at the very south end of Sewalls Point Road, it shouldn't surprise you that I'm against reducing the speed limit. An old expression comes to mind: what's good for the goose is good for the gander. And by that I mean what's good for South Sewalls Point Road should also be good for North Sewalls Point Road. In fact, people living on North Sewalls Point Road have a much stronger case for reducing the speed limit because their traffic is much heavier. And for the majority of the roadway, they have no alternative for biking or walking except to use North Sewalls Point Road. At least in South Sewalls Point, residents can simply go to the nearest cross street and go up to South River Road. The speed limit on South River Road is already 25 miles per hour or 20 miles per hour. There are plenty of stop signs, and the scenery's better. And if bikers or walkers want to go farther north, they can cut back across to South Sewalls Point Road, and without even getting on the roadway, they can use the sidewalk to nowhere to get to Town Hall and the stoplight. South Sewalls Point Road would be dangerous to bikers and walkers even at 25 miles per hour. My suggestion is simply use South River Road. Thank you.
Thank you, HB. April, I saw there was one more public comment, and since we haven't started, if it's about speed limits, I will take it. Is it about speed limits? I don't think so, because I didn't say to make it a public comment, so you could ask. Oh, okay, then, okay, yes, then you can read it. Diane Kimes, if you want to come up and name and address for the record, please.
Diane Kimes, 2 Riverview Drive, and I'm here to say thank you. I applaud your efforts in slowing down this traffic. I've lived in Sewalls Point since '94. I've been on Riverview Road since 2003, and it just has been unbearable these last several years. So as far back as Chief Savini, I've asked about slowing down the traffic. So I want to applaud the commission for doing this, and it may be temporary. I hope it's permanent, but whatever speed limit, anything less than 35 would be a welcome opportunity for our community. Thank you.
Thank you. And we have one more public comment that April is going to read via email.
This public comment is from Dawn Fabrizi. I have been wanting to suggest a lower speed limit in Sewalls Point for some time. After living in 2 locations in Sewalls, South River Road and Castle Hill, I feel we need to reduce the speed limit to 25 miles an hour. Not long ago, while traveling south on North Sewalls Point Road, after leaving my home in Castle Hill, I had to stop for a car turning left on Periwinkle Drive. The car behind me crashed into me, causing significant damage to my vehicle. The driver was charged with reckless driving. I walk my dogs on North Sewalls Point Road and witness many speeders. At times, I don't even feel safe on the sidewalk. The amount of traffic has increased. We now have more delivery trucks, UPS, FedEx, Amazon, all entering and exiting North Sewalls Point Road, making their deliveries. Then there is mail delivery, garbage pickup, debris pickup, countless lawn services with oversized trailers. Then we've got pool services with trailers, and of course U.S. mail carriers, stopping traffic at every mailbox and school buses making their route stops. North Sewalls Point Road has become a shortcut for Federal Highway. Case in point, the driver who hit me lives in Jensen Beach and was on her way back to work in Palm City around noon that day. St. Lucie Boulevard's speed limit was reduced to 25 miles per hour in a drastic way with multiple speed bumps and flashing speed signs. Indian River Drive through Jensen Beach is mostly 25 miles per hour and uses speed bumps and flashing lights. I feel the speed limit should be reduced to 25 miles per hour through the area of the Sailing Emporium and Indian Riverside Park and North Sewalls Point Road. Speed bumps and flashing speed signs are ugly. We have a dedicated police force and would not need speed bumps and lights. There are probably only 3 miles of road that need to be patrolled.
Thank you, April. All right, Commissioner Tompeck, did you want to open up the discussion?
Yes, I've received some of the same comments I've heard today and also some telephone calls. And during my campaign, I received numerous requests on lowering the speed limit on South Sewalls Point Road. I think we all recognize that the shoulder area gets particularly narrow at some points in the road and it's dangerous for cyclists and residents walking. In addition, there is and will be extensive construction for the foreseeable future along the road. While sidewalks would help alleviate the danger, we currently have no plans that I'm aware of in the area anytime soon. And to be quite honest with you, I don't feel safe walking on South Sewalls Point Road. My wife and I go out to walk, we walk on South River Road. You know, we've always considered public safety to be our #1 priority. And I think we should consider lowering the speed limit to 25 or 30. I'll be honest with you, I am adamantly against and I hate speed bumps, speed humps, speed tables, and traffic calming areas. But I do support lowering the speed limit. I mean, some of these speed bumps they put on St. Lucie Boulevard over there and also on Indian Street, that one by the intersection there, that's downright dangerous. It's so high. So I'm not in favor of those things, but I think we ought to carefully consider this, and I know that there's certainly some rules established for this, and I'm sure the chief will fill us in on those. I'm also thinking, and maybe I'm wrong here, that we don't really have control over North Sewalls Point Road, do we? That's a county road, so we're just really talking about South Sewalls Point Road, and I think North Sewalls Point Road has a sidewalk which alleviates some of the problems we're talking about here. So with that said,
Okay.
Mayor, you might want to open the discussion.
Thank you, Commissioner Tompeck. Commissioner Kurzman?
Yes, the same thing Commissioner Compaq did, I did when I was running for election. I walked all the ways, every road along High Point, all the ways through North and South Sewalls Point, on Sewalls Point Road. And when I did, I asked everybody, what's your biggest complaint? The first thing, everybody on just about that I heard from South Sewalls Point Road was cars that go too fast. When I go to back out onto Sewalls Point Road, I almost got hit, and it's just unbearable for the people that live there to pull out of their driveways. They say it's been like a horror story, and God forbid your pet gets loose or something, your pet's gonna get ran over if it winds up on, if the speed limit's a little bit lower, and especially with young children. The kids are playing ball on the lawn or something, the ball goes in the street. You don't want to have the higher speed limit. That was their big complaint at the time. I know I live on Margarita, and where I am, it's almost like, it's blinding almost in a sense. A couple of times I've pulled out, and those are my neighbors, trying to make a left onto Sewalls Point Road, and there's one time, matter of fact, it's actually a friend of mine in High Point that almost hit me coming out. He was going too fast. But it's blinding, especially when you're going around that corner. That should not be 35 miles an hour at that point, coming out of High Point, when you're going around that bend over there. I definitely see, we could definitely see a need to maybe lower the speed limit over there. I don't know how involved it would be to change the speed limit. I know, for me, living almost just shy of High Point, to do 25 would probably be a nightmare, but I'm willing to do whatever it takes to make the town a safer place when people are driving. So it's not anything I'm excited to do, but if it means going down to 30 or 25, I'm willing to listen and participate.
Thanks, Commissioner Kurzman. Commissioner Campo?
Pass on.
Sir?
Again, I want to thank John for bringing up something that's gathered from the campaign trail. And that's, what we do is promise people we're going to listen and bring those things forward. Obviously, we have to listen to the chief about this. I would like to hear from her. I'm open to any changes. I think we should probably look at some of our history. We spent a lot of money with traffic calming, and then we tore them down, and this is before my time. But I hate to be the one that says we tried something before it didn't work, but I think we can learn from the mistakes that we have made. Just a statement, and again, it's not the official position, but River Road has got probably 10 to 12 stop signs from High Point all the way to probably Miramar, and speed limit is 20 miles an hour. That's for a reason, because that's the walking path. And Sewalls Point Road has got no stop signs, and there's a 35-mile-an-hour speed limit. The people that walk their children in strollers on South Sewalls Point Road, I don't understand that. When you can go to River Road, the most beautiful road, maybe in the county. So I'm open to looking at some options. I think we need to pump the brakes. I think, like anything else, education and communication goes a long way. I think maybe part of a newsletter of the commission is considering this, and the police will be enforcing things more rigorously. And if things don't change, this is what's going to happen. I think a lot is communication and education. And you'd be surprised, talk about before, people will, the buzz will be out, there'll be newspaper articles on things, and people will come up for the first time in public comment and say, hey, I heard you're going to do such and such. So unfortunately, we can't over-communicate. And so I think that's a key to the whole thing. But obviously, Sewalls Point has got a police force for a reason. It's in our DNA. Like Tina says, it's a community policing. And I think our police should be monitoring speeds and I'm going to be a smart aleck, not checking people's water sprinklers and measuring the height and all these other things. I think we need to major on the major. Focus on the main thing. And that's our whole culture. I mean, if you look back, AAA used to rate Sewalls Point as a bona fide speed trap because the ticket allowance over the limit was so minor. So that is part of what Sewalls Point is doing, is spending money with the police. I'm not adverse to looking at the speed limit. I'm glad that we're keeping current on what concerns residents, but I'm too not into the speed bumps and stop signs. So I think if we could try kind of a incremental approach of really pushing education, communication, and enforcement, and you know, I'm open to looking at those other options. So.
Thank you, Commissioner Campo. Yes, Town Manager?
Madam Mayor, Commissioners, this decision would be beyond your political will, and it also is beyond policymaking. As I believe most of you know, this is something that we would have to look to our engineers to establish an investigation, in essence, evaluation, checking out the current circumstances and what the issues are, as well as what the traffic patterns would be. So there's a collaborative effort that would occur with the engineers and our chief of police and our police in general for providing the data. But the final decision-making comes after evaluations occur from the town engineer. So you would look for that data first before you have to make any type of change from a policy standpoint. And so the pressure definitely is off of you. But I think what's happening today is that you're the voice of the people. And so some of you have heard this over and over again, and so you want to do your best to get the right answers. And so in an effort to get a better idea of what it takes to change the speed limits, I'm going to ask your town engineer just to give a very brief overview of what he would have to evaluate in order to change it. And while he's getting up to the microphone, I'll let you know that as of the end of today, you have seen some changing in signs on South Sewalls Point specifically, and that's a temporary reduction in speed because of the amount of construction that's currently going on between our projects and the large number of new homes being built. We have a huge number of large vehicles out there, and so I asked the engineers to evaluate the current circumstances. And so this is currently a temporary reduction in speed that you'll be seeing. Mr. Capra?
Excuse me, Joe, 1 second real quick. I wanted to ask Commissioner Tompic, did you want to speak before or after Joe's present?
Well, and I just wanted to, what I was looking for tonight is some consensus that the commission wanted to look at this. I recognize that there's some detailed evaluation that Joe and the chief probably need to do, so I wasn't necessarily looking for that tonight. I just wanted to make sure the rest of the town commission felt that's something they wanted to pursue. That's what I was looking for.
Okay. Joe, can I ask a question related to that? I was under the impression reading this that if it was lowered to 30 miles per hour, an investigation is not necessarily required. But if you go lower than 30 miles per hour, it is. Are you able to answer that, or should we ask Glenn?
I'll let, well, I don't know about less than 30 miles per hour. Let me just, I do a lot of traffic calming. I do a lot of items relative to this, so I'm not going to, I do think town manager put it probably the best perspective. You really need to do a traffic speed study. And to be honest with you, I know Tina has already done some of these, so I would not recommend that I do them without conferring with her first. But the fact of the matter is you have to look at what the people are traveling at, and you know that you look at the 85 percentile, what speed they're traveling at, and quite frankly, you may find that they're not traveling greater than 35 miles per hour on an average of the 85 percentile. So, I mean, there's things that we can do to just monitor it really quickly, give you some data, some information, and tell you what you need to do. I mean, there's a difference between traffic calming and traffic control. So the stop signs that you see a lot of times are traffic control. They're not considered traffic calming technically, and they're not supposed to be used in that light. We're a small town. Can you get away with that? You probably could in some instances, okay? We all rely on what is the DOT program and processes to lower speed limits. That's what all engineers do, and so that's probably what we'd follow. I hate to see you go through an expensive study on this. Let's just see what the, we have counters and we have speed counters and speed as well as number of volumes of traffic. We can throw them out there pretty quickly, and you can see what we have, and like I said, but if Tina's already done it, I certainly wouldn't want to go do it again. But the fact of the matter is, I mean, there's a process for this, and we can handle it, but, like I said, I think you need to know what you have before you go and decide you're going to lower it. What we're doing right now is we can do things during construction that you normally don't do permanently, okay? And so we have lowered the speed limit. And there's policies, quite frankly, and South Sewalls Point Road is a collector road, okay? All the rest of them are neighborhood streets. It's easy to put them at 25 miles per hour. Collector road, you have to kind of look at some of the traffic volumes and speeds to make that determination. And like you say, everything else plays into this. Just so we all remember, we probably have what is now an 18-inch shoulder on each side, moving and expanding to a 3-foot shoulder on both sides. That's not perfect for bikes and so forth, but it is better than what we have. So I just want you to know we are doing some things to improve the safety of it. Sidewalks, once you start building them, you got to start maintaining them. So let's remember that. So I think I've said enough, probably.
All right. Thank you, Joe. Chief Tina, I believe your expertise is desired at the podium.
So I do have a couple of comments, and they're in a couple of different tracks. So if I veer, I promise I'll circle back around. Yeah, no pun intended, right? As Joe explained, speed limits are not set aberrantly. There is a process, and there is actually a Florida state statute that does dictate the fact that municipalities will go ahead, conduct a proper study in conformance with FDOT's procedures before a speed limit is changed. And that procedure, as he explained, I wasn't sure if it came out a little muffled, is that basically what they look at initially when determining a speed is what is called the 85th percentile speed. It has been well over 10 years since the last time we did do an 85th percentile speed calculation on South Sewalls Point Road, but I can tell you then that it was 37.6 miles per hour. The generally accepted standard, from what I understand within the FDOT manual, and Joe, feel free to correct me, is that pretty much without trouble, you could go ahead and vary that within 4 miles per hour without it being an issue. So theoretically, that you could probably go ahead and change that to 33 miles an hour, except the manual also says that you're going to set the speed in 5-mile-an-hour increments. So basically, down the line, if another speed study showed those same results, which I don't have any reason to think that they wouldn't, what you would probably be able to do is change it to 30 miles an hour if that was your desire, without a problem. A number of things that they do mention, though, in going through the state's manual, and it does have a lot of good information. If anyone would like me to send you the 100-page manual to flip through it, I'd be happy to do so. Is that altered speed limits based on opinions are considered contrary to the intent of the statute. So if that's the reason that we're changing the speed limit without appropriate data to go with it, that would be considered to be contrary to Florida law. Research has shown that higher traveling speeds are not necessarily associated with an increased cause of a crash. And I can tell you, I did go ahead and pull the crash data for the last 2 years, beginning from January 2019 until today. Out of a total of, I'm going to call it about 86 traffic crashes, 12 of them were on South Sewalls Point Road. I hate to tell you this, but your real danger on South Sewalls Point Road is your trees. 5 of those 12 involved hitting overhead trees. We had a mailbox homicide. Really, only 2 of those crashes could possibly have been attributable to speed in some way, but they were not cited as a cause of the crash in any way. So part of changing a speed is, if you want to go beyond that 85th percentile speed, is to try and find, are there reasons for that? Do we have crashes? Do we have incidents? And unfortunately, I shouldn't say unfortunately, fortunately, we don't have that. Okay, we don't have speed-related crashes and injuries on South Sewalls Point Road. The last but not least, so what they're saying is that a speed limit of 4 to 8 miles an hour less than the 85th percentile speed has to be supported by supplemental investigation. So again, 4 mile an hour variance from the 85th percentile speed, we really should just be fine. If we want to go beyond that 4 to 8 mile an hour, we're going to have to come up with things such as road or roadside features that are not obvious to a prudent driver, such as a roadway width, a surface condition, there's a hidden sight distance, crash experience, and things of that nature. Because the reality of it is that motorists do not actually dictate their speeds based on speed limit signs. It is based on what they consider to be a safe speed. Based on experience, it's a subconscious reaction to ambient surroundings. We all drive, or at least 85% of us theoretically drive at what we consider to be safe for the surroundings. And I think even the mayor and I have had discussions where I've personally been on South River Road in my police car and been like, whoa, how fast am I going? 12. Okay, because there's an oncoming car. It suddenly seems like you're going faster because of the conditions. And I know I'm not making any excuses, but as somebody who's been watching traffic in this town for 32 years, you know, I'll have folks that'll come in and Kingston, you know, we were told that they're at highway speeds on Kingston. We had 2 vehicles that exceeded 40 miles an hour. One was at 42, the other was at 44. Those were the top speeds over a week. You know, are there speeding vehicles on Kingston and no doubt on Oakwood and these other streets in the detour? Yes. They're spread out throughout the course of the day. It's not like every day, you know, you could sit there at a certain time and just catch these folks. But the vast majority are not going that much more over the speed limit. Out of close to 2,100 vehicles, there's about 200 of those folks we'd be looking for, and if we saw them, we would have written them a ticket. So, and some of that comes down to the UPS truck rounds the corner, the guy guns it. Sounds loud, sounds fast, not really going that fast. Years ago, we had a lot of complaints, the FedEx guys, all these trucks on South River Road. They're just not speeding. They may sound fast, and when we, especially on South River Road, now that we are forcing all the traffic off of Sewalls Point Road into a 2-lane narrow road, if you're standing on the edge of that road and that car goes a foot away from you because you haven't backed off the edge of the roadway, it's fast. Seems fast. Not speeding, but seems fast. So, you know, kind of like what Joe had mentioned, South Sewalls Point Road is that collector road that feeds everyone. I'm sure if you live on that road and you're seeing cars going by you at 35 miles an hour all day long that sound fast, look fast, they are fast to you. And I'm not saying none of them are speeding. They are. We sit out there all the time. But from everything I've read here, if you set artificially low speed limits that are not justified and not within even the realm of that 85th percentile speed, the only way to enforce that is with basically constant and aggressive speed enforcement, because the mere presence of that sign is not going to slow that traffic based on the ambient conditions that haven't changed. Now, if you ask my personal opinion, you're redoing South Sewalls Point Road. I'm not a fan of speed bumps, speed humps, all that other stuff. But I think that, you know, maybe something to consider is in areas where you have more right-of-way, if it wasn't just a straight shot down South Sewalls Point Road, did some meandering that visually changes it, that changes that ambient way of that driver's thinking, that will slow them. It's still, you still want a road where you can safely go down there at some speed, because you know what? If you're having a heart attack in High Point, you don't want that ambulance to not be able to exceed 20 miles an hour getting to your house. Okay, you know, I mean, I hate to say it, but part of that road is you want to be able to get from point A to point B in a hurry if somebody needs to. But you could create it where visually it does change that dynamic a little bit, and certainly that costs money. You know, South Sewalls Point Road's already going to cost a lot of money, but I'm sure that Joe's crack engineering team can come up with some creative ways, maybe not quite to the extent of Ocean Breeze, but where we could change some of that visualization and lower speeds that way down the line, since it is something that you're looking to do anyway. That might be a time to change that. But I can absolutely assure you that, I mean, I've got guys out there every single day in all these places, you know, doing speed enforcement. You know, they don't speed past the police car. I mean, it kind of sticks out a little bit. But when they do see them, they're certainly dealing with them, but we just, again, can't be everywhere at once. With regard to North Sewalls Point Road, we do have substantially more crashes on North Sewalls Point Road. You know, that might be something that if the town is interested in, then, you know, maybe we could coordinate something with traffic engineering at the county to look into that to see, even if it was appropriate, maybe to lower it a little bit. It is a significantly higher traffic volume. It makes it more challenging for our residents to turn in and out of the side streets. You know, and if that's something that you're interested in, you know, you might want to consider that as well. Does anyone have any questions?
Commissioner Tompic, is yours a question for Tina, or is she?
Well, it can be a question for Tina.
Okay. Go
I
ahead.
was wondering how long does it take and how expensive is it to do the 85% study?
Oh, nothing. We have an antiquated box that I rebuilt a couple weeks ago to get it functional again, which is actually how we came up with the data that was on Kingston. The lieutenant, I think tonight or tomorrow, was putting it out on South River Road because we've had complaints there. Because what we had originally got that as a part of a grant, because if not, we couldn't have afforded to buy one. But what we're using it for, like we know now on Kingston, between 8 and 10 and 11 and 1, there is a higher population of exceeding drivers that we would want a ticket if we caught them. So that's when we're going to go sit there. We're not going to go sit there when there's just not as much volume of traffic and not as many vehicles going faster, because our traffic patterns here are extremely consistent. When we've done traffic studies on South Sewalls Point Road, there are days of the week you'll have the exact number of cars during the same 1 hour bin. It's the same folks going home, same folks going to work, and that kind of thing. So we're setting it up on South River Road now because that is an area of concern for some of our other complainants. If you'd like for me to transition that over to South Sewalls Point Road instead, I'd be happy to grab the lieutenant like now, make sure he's not out there putting it out there, and we can go ahead and get that reprogrammed and put it on South Sewalls Point Road.
Madam Mayor?
However,
Madam Mayor, hold on.
Yes.
the issue is going to be is you just put out all these 25-mile-an-hour signs, so that's not really going to give you any accurate data right now. That's the only issue with that.
Chief,
Ma'am.
just to answer Commissioner Tompeck's question, how long would it take to get him significant data?
We physically put it out there usually for like a week. I like to do at least 8 days so that we're sure that we've got a full 7-day cycle, because each day of the week does vary. You know, during Monday through Friday, you've got more workers potentially that are involved. On the weekends, it's almost exclusively residents. You can see the difference in the traffic volumes fluxing quite a bit, so.
Madam Mayor? If the commission likes, we can absolutely gather data now while it is temporarily reduced, then wait, which would probably be in the April timeline.
I'll be honest, the problem
Gather
we
it
have right
again.
now is the signs are brand new.
Okay.
This would not be any kind of, I don't know if you agree, Joe, but this would not be any kind of accurate data for anything. It wouldn't be giving us an 85 percentile speed based on those 25 or 35-mile-an-hour signs right now, because half are going to see the signs, half won't.
What if,
Let me just finish what I was saying.
okay.
Okay. So what you're asking for as a commission is just the data to see if it's actually an issue, right? So if there's an opportunity and a value, and I think that once the general public becomes accustomed to the lower speed limit, then there will be a value to collecting at least traffic patterns, the volume, and the information that you gather, which is, how many miles per hour they're going over 25. So gather that now while it's reduced, because this is this is a great opportunity for a test market, if you will. And then we're going to be back to normal speed limits in probably April, and you can gather the same data again and then evaluate it when we come together during the summertime, if you're looking to even evaluate it. But that's the options, or something else if you'd like to.
Tina, can I ask you a question? What about doing the study more north on South Sewalls Point Road? Because I thought the new speed limit started at Emerita. Is that correct?
It looks like the signs, are just south of Palmetto, so.
Would that work if you moved it north, or would it just?
Me personally, I think that right now, if I did it today, I think it would skew the data. My suggestion might be is let's finish what we're doing on South River Road over the next 2 weeks. By that point, everybody should have settled into the new speed limit signs. We'll put them out there, and we'll have that data. Because what might be an interesting thing to see is if the 85th percentile speed is still 38 miles an hour, even though you've got 25-mile-an-hour signs out there, that's telling you that, in essence, folks are still operating their vehicle in the intuitive way in which they normally do.
Okay. Commissioner Campo?
Yeah, only in America do we not pay attention to the law or the signs, but it's how we feel. So 85% of the people feel that they should be driving 37 miles an hour, which is, I tend to agree with you that that if we're in this mode of changing, I think it's kind of going to be false data because we're trying to train people to slow down already. But I have a different point. To the town manager, what are we doing to educate people that the speed limit is going down to 25 miles an hour? Because on one hand, you said changing the speed limit is very elaborate and requires a lot of laws. On the other hand, you said, I already did it. So I'm a little confused. But I have a question beyond that, if I could, which
Okay.
I think is very important for this commission to hear, but I'll take it one step at a time.
Okay. Town manager?
Well, to be clear, I wasn't the one that actually changed it. At the end of the day, the law is that the engineers change it. So I asked them to look into it and consider if this is something we should do, because we were going to have the Riverview and the outlets construction going on along with what was happening down south. And the conflicts of people still riding bikes, still running in this reduced area. So they took a look at it, and it was something we can do temporarily. That was your question.
The education, what are we doing?
The
to
education
educate-
piece, Chief Tina and I talked about it today, as a matter of fact. She had suggested we send out an email. One of the things I said is when we send out emails like that, that doesn't go to just the people in South Sewalls Point, it goes throughout the whole town, and you can guarantee that it will create a new marketing campaign to take a look at North Sewalls Point and everywhere else. So I wanted to pinpoint what the commission wanted prior to us starting to communicate that. In the meantime, we have signage down there that lets you know that the sign's changing. The chief and her team are going to be, when they pull somebody over, giving them warnings and not being punitive and letting them know via a ticket. She can tell you more about that. But that's typical in any way that when a signage is changed.
Okay. Next
So my
question?
question. So I think you cannot over-communicate this. If people from up north get it, then they get it. Part of the communication could be, as John said, that we don't call the shots in North Sewalls Point. I don't know that information is out there. I thought it was common knowledge, but it's not. But on a slightly different topic, and this doesn't necessarily involve the chief, I want to go back to River Road and a subject that hasn't been discussed for a long time, and that's the missing piece of the sidewalk. 7 years ago, 8 years ago, the town thought that we could provide a walkway from A1A all the way to High Point. Right now, we don't have that because there's no way to get from, River Road dead ends by the Nemi's property. So we were trying to find, or I shouldn't say we, wasn't me, but they were attempting a workaround where they would have a sidewalk from A1A past Town Hall to, I think, Miramar, and then so people could walk, bike, stroller from High Point down River Road, cut into Miramar, get on the sidewalk, go past Town Hall, cross the, and go to the bridge and do whatever. Well, they attempted to get the right-of-way for, as you know, the piece that's north of that and the piece that's south of that. And the commissioners at the time thought, well, let's just build it and we'll work it out. Now, none of those commissioners are on the board any longer, but I can tell you from serving with them, the deal did not go well, to say the least. We ended up suing for eminent domain and ended up having to pay for the landowner's missing piece. There was a lot of bad blood where people were talking to the owner of that property, and the relationship was really strained. So during that time afterwards, I thought, let me talk to the Nemes. I spent a lot of time with them, and he came back. Dr. Nemi came back. Now, this is Dr. David, not Dr. John. And he said, you know what? No harm, no foul. He didn't ask us for any punitive damages. He just asked us to pay his legal fees, which I think were $80,000 or $90,000. So there was a lot of pain there. And Vinny was on the board, Luger was on the board, Jackie was on the board. So I went there, and Jackie was like, go for it, and I came back. And now that we're throwing around numbers of acquiring real estate, 400,000 here, 400,000 there, I mean, $500,000 here and $500,000 there starts adding up to some serious money. But back then, the request was, you can finish the sidewalk, you can have a nice swath of land, you could chop down some trees, you can finish the sidewalk. It's $100,000. And that cost was, that recoiled. There was recoil on the commissioners because of, I think, the bad blood. Like, is he kidding, blah, blah, blah. But now that we're looking at buying real estate, if we really want to keep people safe and we want to give them a safe way to get from High Point all the way to A1A, there's, time heals some wounds. And Dr. Nemi is, I still talk to him every once in a while. It gives me miscellaneous advice. But if there was ever a desire to keep South Sewalls Point safer and educate the use of River Road and complete the sidewalk, that's something that we could consider, is going back and saying, look, that was then, this is now, we have a new, I think it was 2 town managers ago. 2 town managers, whole new commission, why don't we finish the sidewalk? Why don't we pay you just to, cut through the land and put the safeties? Have you seen anyone going from the sidewalk, like a kid on a bike, going from the sidewalk, they're on Sewalls Point Road, then they gotta go to the path in front of Dr. Nemi's house, and then they gotta get back on the sidewalk. To me, that's, but if we're really looking at not just a speed limit problem, but a solution to giving people a safe path with lots of stop signs, low speed limits, a beautiful walkway, you can actually go from, Harbor Bay Plaza all the way to HB's house and not have to touch South Sewalls Point Road. So I'll just throw that out as another possibility because this commission has never discussed it before. And it might be a new conversation. So just throw that into the mix.
Okay.
Okay? That's history lesson for the night.
Thanks, Commissioner Campo. That's interesting. I didn't know that. I'm glad you brought that up. Commissioner Tompeck, did you have anything else you wanted to say before we wrap it up or decide how we're going to move along? I don't believe we have any.
No, go right ahead.
Because the speed limit is temporarily changed, I think we need to decide whether it's worth it to do. Tina, you said it does not cost any money to do the,
No, not at all. What we'll do is we'll finish up our one on River Road.
Okay.
And then we'll move it over to Sewalls Point Road. By that point, the speed limits, hopefully, or at least the vehicles have at least stabilized into
Okay.
whatever's their new normal.
Okay.
On South Sewalls Point Road. It's just, it's police manpower. We do it
Okay.
ourselves.
okay.
So-
So since it doesn't cost any money, if there's agreement amongst the commission, why don't we, when they finish with River Road, put it even with the lowered speed limits, and then when the speed limits are changed back to normal, as town manager suggested, do it again, and then readdress this issue because it does seem to be important, and there are other areas to look at. Does that sound good with the other commissioners? Okay, all right.
Perfect. We'll take care
All
of
right,
it.
thank you, Tina.
Thank you for that direction, Mayor.
All right, now down to grant status update. I believe we are getting a little update from Joe and Amy, if you guys want to lead us into this.
Okay, I prepared this is Joe Capper. I prepared a little PowerPoint. I'll try to go through it quickly because I know you've all seen some of these before, but I just want to remind you what we're working on.
No,
I believe it was a time crunch, and that is why we're looking at it now.
they just brought it today.
So this is, we're just going to do a quick grant status update, but I thought I'd start with showing you what is under construction now. The first slide, I believe you all, next slide. So basically, you've all seen this slide several times. Basically, this is South Sewalls Point Road Phase 1. And basically, I don't know if you can see my pointer, but the fact of the matter is, we are building what is in this blue area right now. You've already built Part 1 up here back in 2018. You're building this now with the grant funds that you have from DEP and Indian River Lagoon. And this green area here is the area we will continue building as soon as we find out from FEMA or as soon as they give us the grant that we've been told we're going to get. The state has recommended it. We're waiting for the federal FEMA to say, go forward with that. So that's the process. Next slide. This is what it looks like today out there. We've raised the road in the Part 2 area, and you can see the curbing and so forth that's going on. We're making adjustments, grading adjustments and so forth next to the road. Road's been raised about probably almost 2 feet in the area of Sewalls, South Sewalls Point Road and Margarita. So it's moving along pretty well. Again, we really want, this is Phase 1, Part 2. We really want to get Part 3 going. Contractor is probably going to have to leave the site in another couple weeks if we don't get something from FEMA. Unfortunately, as you can tell in this picture, it's nice and dry out there. He can do a lot of, he can get a lot of it accomplished. So anyways, that's where we are in Part 2, Phase 1. Part 3 we're waiting on. Going through the next slide, this is the area of Phase 2. As you know, we have, this is just immediately north of Phase 1, of course, and we are pretty much waiting on some funding for this. One of the appropriation requests that we made. North of what we're working on now? Yes, yes. Yeah, so we're working on, as you know, the area that you acquired is right here, but basically the next phase, Phase 2, I won't say it's the next phase we're going to work on, but essentially we have applied for a couple grants in this area, and I'll go through them in a couple charts from now. But essentially that brings us up to Phase 2. The next slide after this, pretty much, I mean, you can see the Homewood area is really what we've been talking about when we talk about the acquisition of land with Mrs. Riley as well as from Jeremy. So this reflects, we call it Phase 3, Homewood. This is the area that floods most frequently. So this is the area we're moving to. This is the existing HMGP grants that we've applied for. So I just want to kind of show you what it looks like out there today. And then the next slide pretty much just shows the improvements that we're planning for that area of Phase 3. So you've seen all these slides before. I don't want to belabor them. I'll be happy to go back to them if you'd like. So let's just go to I think the next slide it really just shows the improvements that we've been planning for in Phase 3. That's the next big area after we finish Phase 1. So let's keep going to these are the tables that gives you kind of a grant summary.
Oh, I'm sorry, I was looking.
Yeah.
Excuse me, Joe.
I'm
Commissioner
sorry, but
Campo.
I think for clarification, stages and parts are confusing. So right now, you're about ready to finish Stage 1, Part 2, and then we're hoping to do Stage 1, Part 1, and then eventually, we're getting ready to do Stage 3. So I think we
Phase, right?
need to clarify that. Is that correct?
Phase, not stage.
Yeah, phase.
Yes, it's phases. We have 4 total phases.
Right. But the
Okay.
first one is in 2 parts.
Actually, there's actually 3 parts. You did Part 1 in 2018, Part 2 you're doing now, Part 3 is the part that we're waiting for FEMA's money.
Okay, so those 3 parts we're calling Phase 1.
Phase 1, there you go.
Okay, okay. And now we're going to skip Phase 2,
There you go.
go all the way to Phase 3. Okay,
We're going to go to Phase 3.
okay.
So this table in front of you, kind of outlines the various grants in Phase 1, okay? We're only talking Phase 1 on this piece of paper. Phase 1, Part 1, we show you the total cost of design, the total cost of construction, and the total cost overall, okay? That's been done, 2018, okay? You've spent that money already. Phase 1, Part 2, under construction. You can see the top of if you work across, you can see the various entities that are contributing to this project. The town is putting money into this. If you look at the bottom of that, you'll see $229,250. That's what the town share is of that part. HMGP, $86,250. They've paid for the design, portion of the design.
Who's they?
HMGP is a FEMA grant. It's the FEMA grant, okay? So you know that's a federal grant, okay? That's the one that we have already have a contract for, okay? A grant, a phase, and that's only allowed for design, okay? $86,250, okay? We haven't been paid back for it because what they do is they give you, and I know this phasing part's going to even get you more confusing, but HMGP, the first phase that they give you in a grant is for design, permitting, okay? You provide that documentation to them, and then they give you the phase 2 part of their grants, which is the construction phase. That's what we're waiting on to complete phase 1, part 3. Okay? So this is just telling you again, part 2. The town has money involved. HMGP has provided some design money. DEP, we have a $600,000 grant there. Okay? It's not only construction items. If you look down on the left, you'll see various other items we have to do to get their money, but $600,000 is the amount of money that we have from them. Okay? Indian River Lagoon Council, we have 2 grants that are combined for $330,000. You follow that one, Commissioner Campo?
I remember that.
You know that one. And MCU, Martin County Utilities, they have contributed to the water main replacements in this area, okay? They are giving us $488,000. Now, I'm showing you this number for Martin County Utilities throughout this whole grant program because you get a chance to use their money as a match, okay? And that's the only reason it's on this chart. They basically pay for the well, I shouldn't say that. You have it in your contract. You have an interlocal agreement for it. Basically, you expend the funds, they give you back the money, okay? And they've done the same thing for the design. They paid us directly for their design, okay? The bottom line is, those are the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 entities that are contributing to this part 2, okay? It's just about done. When we get done, we will have expended, and again, some of these, when we get done with all the construction, if you look down that line, you'll see $1,335,000. That's what we will pay for just the construction, okay? There's other things in here, but I just want you to know that's the construction phase. When we get done after you've spent money on all the designs and everything, and you have to do a monitoring and public education and CEI, you'll have spent $1.73 million, okay? So that's going to be done here in the next couple of weeks. We really need FEMA to get off center on their construction phase.
Excuse me, Joe, Commissioner Campo has a
I
question.
think this is
on
the right
part.
time. The HMGP Hazard
Mitigation grant program.
Okay. Breaking news this afternoon. Note from Senator Scott's office, the Sewalls Point project is in the final stages of the Environmental and Historic Preservation Review. The project's EHP, which is Historic Preservation Review, was delayed slightly to allow ample time for engagement with federally recognized tribes who have current or ancestral ties to the project area. The good news, now this is a note from FEMA, the good news is the project is now moving forward and we expect it to be funded to the state in mid-March. So we'll keep an eye on it, and that's just an estimate, and, you know, see
What's
why
that
it is.
amount?
That's the missing piece. That's the 86,250, right?
No, what the good part about it is go down to the next one. That's where the good news is.
Okay.
The $1,293,750.
Oh.
That's what we're waiting for
Oh,
from them.
okay.
Okay.
There you go.
So let me just, that's very good news, but let me ask you a question.
Come on, you can do better than that.
That's what I'm going to say.
Come on.
You can do better than that. If it's indeed on the books to happen in March, why can't they let us move forward with the construction and see if they can, if it's,
% raise in order to get that answer, okay?
I'm only trying to keep the contractor moving, because what you should realize, and I'm going to go to the next chart. The next chart, Phase 1, Part 3, okay? In this part, we are only using your money, and we are using HMGP money, FEMA money, right? And as you can see, $1,293,750 is what we hope to get from them, okay? And what we have in there for town money is about $482,000 is needed from your coffers, okay? So the item that, is that $245,000 there? You see that under construction add-on? Probably about $145,000 of that, just so you know, is for them to demobilize and remobilize back again, which we pay if we don't get this money quickly, okay? So I'm trying to, the reason I asked for made that ask of the senator is if all he can get from us is that it's going to happen, you just have to wait for the money.
Never mind.
It would be cheaper to pay the contractor some interest on his money to do this work, and we only pay like $5,000. Now we're going to be paying $145,000.
Well, I was excited that we actually had a bureaucrat in Washington DC that's not just slow, but frozen with blizzards, and someone that was going to give us some level of, hey, we're looking at it, and it's moving. So, I can give it a try, but I
get it. I just want you to know that we're so close. It's really unfortunate. Plus, what ends up happening here is we push back the construction into the rainy season. And you saw the dry pictures. It can make it, you may not get anything out of it, Commissioner, I agree, but you've done enough.
At the same time, when we did this, and I used the analogy of the missing piece of the sidewalk, we knew that we were taking a risk of this happening. And we're going to have Lake Hoover between Margarita and High Point if we get the rains. So,
Commissioner Kurzman?
Yes, first thing I'm going to do is make a statement. The quality of the work that Cheatham has done has been remarkably great. They've been very professional, and it's a big difference between when we got into the first part of Phase 1 to the second because of them. I really commend them on the professionalism and the high quality of the work. Now, the question I'm going to have is, what would be the cost if we had to stop construction before we get to the next phase? How much extra would it cost the town? Because by the time they have to reset up again and bring everything in, there is a cost involved, but how much is it? Would you have any projection of what? No, I'm not to finish the project. I'm saying the money that we'd lose. In other words, when you stop construction, they lift up all the machinery, they lift everything away, everything comes off, and then move on to their next projects, which is what would happen. What would the,
Excuse me, Madam Mayor, sorry.
Yes.
As I know it's a workshop and it's a casual atmosphere, but Amy, I just need you to talk into the microphone so we get your comments recorded. But
That's what,
Mr.
Joe was
Mark
mentioning
Grossman.
earlier, is it's a construction add-on. You see it in Part 3 up there, and you also see it in the next one for Phase 2, construction add-on. All of those are HMGP grant projects. All of them are delayed. All of them are looking at a 18 to 20 month delay on a 6-month review process. So the federal government is that far behind at this point.
okay, so it cost the town $245,000 to.
Shut everything down and then remobilize. That's what it,
Wouldn't
Let me
it
give you
make
that number,
sense?
let me be accurate with you that number, okay? It's really $145,000, okay?
Yeah.
That's the number for going in and out. We have, as you requested, we actually looked at the pump systems, okay?
Yeah.
I just want you, there's a difference of about another $100,000 in there for adding a second pump system in there. So I want to be fair. The number was 145 to go off and come back. Now, again, that depends on how long this delay is. If, for example, that was assuming we would not hear back until April, okay? They wouldn't be able to come back. So if the middle of March is there may be there may be less, okay? I'm just telling you the numbers, what they have is, as you mentioned, Commissioner, about equipment in and out. The other things is, they're not going to go, they got all this maintenance and traffic items out there. They're not going to go pull them all up and then put them back in, okay? So that's basically, there's a rental on some of that numbers of the maintenance and traffic items.
All right, but
The red signs out there, the orange signs that are throughout. Now, obviously, you're not going to have the detours and things like that, but you're going to have, some of that still out there.
wouldn't it make more sense for us to lay the money out to continue the project, knowing that the the horizon's there, we could actually see it now. We're not far from grabbing the money to put the outlay, so it saves us money to lay the money out to finish the project versus just hanging out for the grant and losing money.
Well, that's what I was trying to point out, and that's why I was hoping maybe and I'm not saying they can do this, if the senator could have at least said, you're going to get the money, and we'll let you start before you actually get the contract. I don't know if they would do that. I'm just saying, that's all we're asking him to find out, because the way the rule reads right now, you cannot spend any of the money until you have a contract from the HMGP. So we don't have that $1,293,000 contract in hand yet. So we can't spend anything before we get that contract.
Well, you can spend it, but it's not reimbursable.
Correct.
Right,
Correct.
you can't.
In other words, you can't spend.
Well, that's, yeah, we might be subject to.
And even if you're using some of your match money, they don't want to be involved. If you're already spending that money, they don't want to be involved. They don't want you proceeding until they have the contract in, and then you can go and start work again. So nobody gets to get on the site and start working until HMGP has executed their contract. So we can't go and spend, any of the, that's why there's no other group in that part 3 right now, because we wouldn't be able to spend any money, so we moved it into phase 2, we started shuffling it around so they wouldn't be part of that phase. Because everybody else is waiting for their money to be spent,
Could
Yeah.
you guys just help me out and clarify, there's the talk of the March that Commissioner Campo mentioned, and I know, Amy, you had mentioned that there was what is a 6-month contract time is now 18 to 20 month. Can you kind of put that all into a package that I understand how long we could potentially not be doing construction? Or I realize there's a lot of variables, but just...
Well, when Joe went and his team put together the design, that design was originally submitted to them in September 2019.
Okay.
And it's usually a 6-month review process.
Okay.
So right now, we're in February 2021. So we've been waiting for almost
Okay.
a year and a half.
That's helpful. And so what's happening in March is that it's going to be looked at? Is that what, like, there's confirmation from a reliable source, obviously, that this is, I just trying to get it.
Hopefully, they will send a contract to execute with
Okay,
the town.
okay.
That's what we're waiting for, is
Okay,
the contract.
and then you can start.
Then we can all get back
Construction,
onto the project site.
The caveat that as long as everything's been approved. So
Okay.
I'm glad that it's on its way.
And so there's something happening on the side to approve? I'm sorry. I find it all very confusing, I'm not gonna lie.
So federal money does not allow you to start working on, federal money cannot be spent, and you cannot move forward on federal dollars until they get their contract in play. Whereas state money or local money, you get a look-back period of almost a year to spend the money, and then you can come under contract. As long as you're not spending their money, you can spend the match. You can spend, so
Okay.
you can get going. You can begin mobilizing. Federal money does not let you do that, because most of the federal money is appropriated by Congress, whereas we have, set budgets at a state level. So
Okay.
they don't want you moving forward unless you have that executed. And you can't go spend, money from the Indian River Lagoon program. You can't go spend any of that until theirs is first signed.
Okay.
It's the golden rule.
It is golden rule.
Okay.
So, Joe, I'm sorry to jump in, may I?
Yes, you may.
So, how itching are they, is Cheatham, to demobilize? And if Dave Kurzman gave them the backyard, could they just put all the equipment? You're the closest one. Come on, take one for the team.
Yeah.
Should have plants on it.
I got this lovely empty lot right behind me.
But they want to use that equipment. They don't want to, it's not just storage, right?
No, they're going to take the equipment off. They're going to take it off. If we don't have something in the next couple of weeks, they're going to take their equipment off, and they're going to, the biggest item in the extra money, quite frankly, is the time that they have to pay the additional time, because they're predicting if they're not getting back in 4 months, if they're not going to be back in two months, they, you know, it's not that their superintendent's not working here, but they're going to expect to get paid for the superintendent for the additional 2 months at the end. So that's what it is. They've given me a breakdown. Again, I just want you to know, it's not necessarily one, but the top end, it could be about $145,000 bucks. So again, they're more than willing. They're the ones that recommended, hey, why don't we just, again, if it wasn't for what Amy just explained to you, you know, they're willing to listen. We'll do the work. We'll hold. We'll charge a small amount of interest on this. It could be no more than $5,000, and we'll just get the work done. But we can't because of the federal requirement. That's the problem.
So it's not just moving their equipment. I guess the question is, if we get mid-March money, do we just whistle them back and they come over, or are they going to be all enthralled in another 6-month project for Indiantown or some other place? I mean, how quickly can we get them back once we have that contract signed? And, I mean, this thing is coming together and it's close. We've done more difficult things and pulled it off, but, you know,
Well,
how much time is-
they've told me they're committed to finishing the job, okay? So that I have from them. I mean, they're committed.
But what does that mean? If we get the money in mid-March, they're going to come back and remobilize?
Yeah.
Okay.
They're going to come back.
So
They're
it might be
committed. They would just like
$145,000.
to keep moving is what they'd like to do, but they're going to, unfortunately, they can't just sit there and twiddle their thumbs. They got to keep moving. And they're going to go to another job, so we'll get them back. I just wish we
Joe,
didn't.
is any of the, that $1,293,000 in construction, is any of that mobilization?
There's a portion of mobilization and maintenance of traffic in there, yes.
Are there, is the presentation, Joe, the presentation is, there's no more slides, correct? Is this the, because I know that we interrupted with questions, so I didn't know, yeah.
Yeah, I didn't give you the other projects that
Okay.
we are grants. And
Okay.
and so the one I'm talking about now are grant applications and grant contracts we have in hand, okay? For phase 1, okay? So next one I'm going to go to is phase 2, which I know we're going to skip over, but I wanted you to know what your potential costs were, and I want you to understand that you currently have applications, pending applications, that's why it says it there, that you've put in money, you've asked HMGP, again, federal funds, for close to $1.833 million. Of that, 710s for land. I just used the land cost you have now. We've not made any commitment or even looked at the land cost out there. I'm just assuming it may be close to what we're paying in phase 3, okay? So I just want you to know, HMGP does pay for land. And then we have, as you know, we went before the state legislature, the local delegation, and applied for, Amy has turned in a request for a $900,000 request from the state legislative appropriations. That's the column next to HMGP. Okay. You want to talk about it now? Just because we're talking about it?
I think I talked to the town manager and Mayor Mayfield about this because they helped with the presentation at the delegation meeting. The $900,000 that's in your Phase 2 chart there is a legislative appropriation. We heard from Senator Harrell's office today that I had requested, the way that I had written up the request this year, instead of focusing on so much stormwater, I focused on raising the road, because that's a high priority for this area, because we've seen so many photos of people thigh deep in water. And so I had, during our sort of our pre-screen with Senator Harrell, to get her to back it, this is a really big problem. This is a connector road that goes to Martin County's, evacuation route, essentially. And there's, a large portion of population that's, about 1,600 people that affects for homeowners down there. So I redrafted it and still included all the information about the stormwater, but I really pushed on the whole raising of the road. And so submitted that, and Senator Harrell's office called today, and I had asked, is there any way we can not put it in environment for subcommittee? Can we put it in transportation? So transportation for appropriations, there's 6 appropriation committees in the House, and there's 4 or 5 in the Senate. And I didn't want it in environment because transportation takes about 60% of the appropriation budget. And then the other 4 get to share the last 40%. So I wanted, and I had done transportation funding in the past. Transportation funding tends to be, what is your price? We'll write down the price. That's what we'll fund. They don't haggle back and forth. So Senator Harrell explained to me today she was able to put it in the transportation subcommittee. So it's moved over to there, and there is no such thing as recurring funding. We will have to be submitting an application every year, but we are on a cycle with them for a 5-year cycle of putting in $900,000 or more each year for this project in transportation. So if it is awarded, we will get $900,000. You are being in the queue for the next one. We've already laid out the master plan with them. And if they move forward on this one, which, as you know, we already got money from Negron for $600,000 on this project. So we already have a line item. We've established that we're coming back and doing the next phase. So they already see commitments. So that's when we were able to lay down the next 5 years. We'll be able to continue to ask for this amount of money or more to finish the project.
Okay.
So that's what we're working for. She is, and she's working with the chairman she was working with Chairman Albritton over in Okeechobee, which is, the border there. They're right on the borders together. So they were working together to try and get it in one of those subcommittees. Albritton is very strong with appropriation committee, so she got his support on it. So she's definitely a money senator right now. She's got a lot of strength. She's a fireball. So anyway, that's where we are at that. So let's just hope that that appropriation comes through for $900,000.
Thank you very much.
Yep.
That's good news.
Okay, so I think you see all the town funding, HMGP, legislative, Martin County Utilities, again, they will need to also come up with money to replace and relocate the water mains when we do this work. I've already spoken to them, and they are putting this in these numbers in their budgets also. So anyways, that number, you see all the numbers there. We put in money on construction add-on, assuming that some of these grants don't line up again, we may have the same problem. So anyways, I just want you to know all that stuff is in there. That's phase 2. Phase 3, well, just so you know, the phase 3 is really what we've been calling Homewood in the past. And as you know, we have turned in a request to them. They've given us, at the current time, they've only told us that our commitment or our deadline for the design is a few months away, which they've extended, okay? Because our deadline was at the end of December. So anyways, on phase 3, you can see the town money there in the first column. All these numbers are consistent. We pretty much have used what we've been able to get in other phases. HMGP on this one, as you know, we already have been working on contracts for land acquisition of $710,000, and then the $1,024,000 we have actually basically turned in a request on money from them, HMGP, for that money. We've also turned in an Indian River Lagoon Water Management District grant, which is the $1,450,000, and we are actually they've awarded contracts ahead of us, but we may be in the running for that, depending on who is shovel-ready the quickest, okay? Some of those groups may not be shovel-ready, and we hope to swoop in and get a $450,000 commitment from them. The problem with that is we need to be shovel-ready, and you need to have plans ready, and even if we're shovel-ready relative to design and permitting and everything, the other item that's important here is that we have the HMGP commitment. And that was the reason we wanted to get an expansion on the Homewood grant, because we already had a Homewood grant. And we felt that if we had that grant, that would give us some way where we could get money sooner. Now, again, there's a lot of stars that got to align here, folks, okay? And there's also, some money that you have to commit to this. It's not wasted money, but the fact of the matter is you're going to have to spend some money. And that design up there is $150,000. You're not going to need to spend all of that, but you're going to need to spend some money here to get these plans ready, or shovel ready, to hopefully get that $1.45 million. That's all I'm trying to tell you. Martin County Utilities, again, has put money aside for their changing of water mains and so forth. So I'm pointing out to you that, we got a lot of stars aligned here in some ways, but, you got land acquisition underway. You have, need to get some design done. You have an HMGP grant. You got a Indian River Lagoon grant. You got Martin County Utilities working with us. So a lot of stuff that's got to happen here in the next few months. And so I'm just pointing that out to you. You need to tell me if we're going in the right direction or not, but that's the only way we're going to get phase 3 done in the current program. So I went through everything relative to the South Sewalls Point Road projects. I mean, we have other things we can talk about relative to septic to sewer, but I think this is what you asked me to talk about today.
Thank you, Joe. I want to say real quick, I think these charts are great because I'm kind of always looking for this information, and so I appreciate you guys putting it together and like it a lot. All right, Commissioner Tompeck.
I think the charts are great, too. I'm wondering, do you have any kind of a Gantt chart on timing here?
I can revise the one that I have. I was going to do it.
Microphone, sorry.
Yes, I can do the Gantt chart again. I did one early on, I think that was about a year and a half ago, and I've been tracking it. I didn't know if you wanted I put together these charts first. Joe said, why don't we put back tables, because people can follow tables, so we put the tables together. So these funding sources, because there's 2 funding sources up there that are legislative monies, the legislature runs on a different cycle than the fiscal year that's in the town budget and HMGP. They go July 1st to June 30th. So if we are awarded the $900,000, and incidentally, that IRL WMD money, that was $25 million every year for 5 years that Harold was able to secure. I remember going to those meetings for like 5 years. She was trying to get the legislature on board. Well, she got it. So they did the commitment. It was in the wastewater bill last year, 712, Senate Bill 712. And so we have 5 years of $25 million available for IRL projects. That money, we are one of 7 that did not make the list for spending that money this year during the competitive period. So the water management districts are taking it to the legislature first and asking them to fund those last 6 projects, and then going to put out the competitive bid for it in August. So we could have 2 legislative money projects, and right now these are in applications that are later. So what I'm just saying is it may change again. You may end up using that money forward in order to get other projects done,
Okay.
just because we would have, those contracts come to you in July 1 for execution this year.
Okay, thank you. I think maybe whatever you could do in terms of giving us some kind of timeline, however it has to be altered or whatever, I think is helpful, if that's possible. Thank you. Commissioner Campo?
Yeah. See, my friend Ike, who used to be a reporter for Palm Beach Post, he has a saying, bury the lead. The lead here is we might be 30 to 60 days with no activity and have to pay $145,000 to mobilize. I know we're all trying hard. We're all trying to put things together. I think it took us a long time to try to work with one property owner for right-of-way, and I think it's going to cause, just going to say, it's going to cause embarrassment to the town to have to come up with money and have that look like, crap for 60 days and with hurricane season coming. So I'm just, as far as HMPG, I'm glad I was able to get state money, 500,000, and I'm glad I was able to get IRL money, 180, and, you know, but I'm not going to take the pressure of taking the 1.3 and lobbying Senator Scott. I think it might make sense to get someone like Ken Pruitt on a federal level or something like that, because HMGP is going to be the future source of so many of these things. And the stars, might need to line up, but this is the closest we've ever come to actually visualizing and looking at the numbers. And, so this is when we have to like dig deep. And we've obviously accepted the business model of funding capital improvements through grants. And, I think this is the time that we need to be committed to Amy Adams and Joe and Michelle, because we can't blow this. We're so close, and Dave keeps saying, we need to do this, we need to do, we're doing it, Dave. I mean, we didn't do it before, we're doing it. So we need to be committed to the whole team and push forward and figure out a way to, keep working at HMGP, because that's a major source of not just now, but into the future.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Campo. I think unless any other commissioner has any other comments, I think that is good. Thank you for the presentation. Like I said, these are great charts, so.
I'm not sure we're done.
Did you have something to say, Town Manager?
Mayor, are we done with this portion of the presentation?
You said mayor.
Yeah? Okay. All right. Just as a reminder, if that funding comes through in July, this is what the town's portion is. So our March 6th conversation that we're going to have at the workshop, when we start to really try to ideate around how to bring these things together and kind of land this plane, it's going to be super important to make it happen.
And you'll get us a copy of this, because it wasn't in our packet, and it's really valuable.
But I just got it today, so absolutely. As soon as we can send it over, absolutely.
Good,
Okay.
good stuff.
The
Thank
other
you.
thing that, just as a side note, and it's an asterisk, we'll get you a separate copy, which gives you maybe a more formalized review and view of what the town has paid so far, and also what we anticipate paying, which
Yeah.
would include legal fees.
Kind of incorporate it with our, how it affects us financially. I think that's excellent. All right. We are moving on to scope and cost estimate comp plan, presentation by Bonnie Lander. I know, Town Manager, you wrote a memo. I didn't know if you wanted to introduce it first, or if you wanted to have Bonnie go first. I'll let you decide.
I will introduce Bonnie Landry as the planner that is working with the town of Sewalls Point. I'm trying to look around to see Bonnie. Hi, Bonnie. She's over there. So as you know, we went out to RFP, and Bonnie answered our requests. And she is here tonight to explain to you the process that she has learned so far for specifically our town and what next steps would be.
Okay.
No, I'm messing with you.
I can't tell.
I can move to the other one. No, it's on. You have to be a little louder. That's all.
I'm usually so loud. My name is Bonnie Landry again. I have a planning firm in Stuart, Florida, and I am a certified planner. And so what I'm going to do today is to give you an overview of the comprehensive plan process, because your comprehensive plan was written in 1989, so none of you have been involved in updating a comp plan. You haven't done that yet. So I'll start from the beginning. Next slide. So I'm going to give you an overview and a purpose of what a comp plan is, our approach towards the project, roles and responsibilities, and then the overall project timeline. Next slide. So a comprehensive plan is pretty well dictated by Florida Statute 163. There's mandatory elements. There's mandatory data that you must collect and analyze. And what results will be a broad focus of what your goals, objectives, and policies are for the next 30 years. And it does include a map series. The map series that you have in your original document, which I did not say, but it is a typed version of a scanned document. It's that old. So your maps in there are hand-drawn, and obviously now we have the technology of GIS. an interactive map series that will be included in this project to bring it up to current standards. And the comp plan provides orderly path to your growth in your town. But I did want to say what the difference between a comprehensive plan and a land development regulation is. The comp plan is a broad view of long-term planning, whereas a land development regulation is more specific to individual lots, and that's like your setbacks, your height limits, and things like that. But a comp plan are broad things and long-term things. And also in a land development regulation, you have a zoning map and zoning text. But that's not what we're here to talk about. I just wanted to give you the difference between an LDR and a comp plan. Next slide. There's going to be 3 primary components to this project. Throughout the project, you're going to have public involvement. And included in that, we'll have a project website. We'll have interactive polling if COVID permits. That's basically a clicker system where we'll ask some of the desires of the public and they'll be able to vote, and then there'll be live graphs that will be presented from there, and we'll use that data to build the plan. The data analysis for each element, there are 9 elements that will be required in this project. And one of the important components that was added in 2015 was a requirement for addressing sea level rise and perils of flood. So that'll be an important part of your coastal element. Next slide. So as I said before, your comprehensive plan is from December of 1989. I've had 2 conference calls with the Department of Economic Opportunity who will be reviewing the plan. And they're basically typical approach in a comp plan is an evaluation that's done every 7 years. But since you have not gone through that evaluation process every 7 years, the state recommended that we just strike out the old comp plan in its entirety and replace it with the new version, which will be based on current law. And they've also asked me to create a matrix, which I will, which will go through each required data, each required element. There's specific goals that we need to address according to statute. So I'll go through the statute, and the statute is included in your packet. It's very specific what you must have in your comp plan to make it comply with state law. And I'll also work with your town lawyer to make sure that we set things the proper way. Because sometimes planners, we have to come up with a goal, and then the attorneys want to look and make sure it's something that they can defend as an attorney. So I will be working with your town attorney on this final draft. So I've divided the project into 2 phases over the next 2 fiscal years. The project initiation is basically tonight. The first thing I will do, I will create a public involvement plan, which will lay out all the ways that will involve your residents, your business owners, etc., and I'll include the website, etc. But what does take a great deal of time, which doesn't really involve your involvement, is the data collection. There's specific things, types of housing you have, what shape your housing is in, what things about your roadway. So each element will be covered for the data. The elements that are included, and I don't know if I put this in your packet, are future land use, transportation, housing, infrastructure, coastal, conservation, recreation, intergovernmental communication, coordination, and capital projects. And again, all of these elements are required through the statute. Next slide. So I want to kind of go over the roles and responsibilities of everybody who will be participating in this. But my role is to basically provide you, the elected officials, and the public what the process is about, so you understand what we're doing and why we're doing it. Also, I need to engage the public to make sure the plan meets local needs and local desires. I need to gather the data to support the plan. I will draft the goals, objectives, and policies and required elements. I will be collaborating with the DEO throughout the process. I'm happy to say they've been great with other projects. You call, they answer the phone. If they don't answer right away, they call you right back. They have a really good support system at the state level. I will facilitate the transmittal hearing, which is that first reading of the ordinance. After you've had the first draft, it goes to the state, and they prepare a report to say, does it meet state law? So they may have some changes that they recommend. So it comes back to us to make any changes that are needed. And then it has a second reading after that. And then after that second reading, it's adopted. But it is a process. Next slide. So what is the commission and staff's roles? What I rely on the elected officials is to encourage the public participation, help me get the word out when we're having a meeting and a workshop so that the public feels like they're involved and they're, you want to express the desires of the community. You will be reviewing the data that I collect and analysis. You'll review the goals and objectives and policies. You'll recommend any changes, and then you'll be the body that adopts the final document. So, as I said before, I've divided this into phase 1 and phase 2. Phase 1 is basically getting the public involvement plan, how we're going to involve the public. I will have you approve that public involvement plan to make sure that we have met what you would like to see, how you'd like to see the public involved. And then throughout the first phase, we will go through each of the elements and provide the data and analysis. So basically, each element will have pages and pages of analysis and data to support the plan. Then, in the next fiscal year, we will go, yes, go ahead. Yeah. The goals, objectives, and policies will be drafted for each of the elements. You'll have an LPA workshop where you'll just basically have the public come and interact. Then you'll have your public hearing for transmittal, which is your first draft at the LPA level. Then you'll have a town commission meeting to have your first reading, and then it will go to the state, as I said before, and then you'll have your final adoption. But there is a period of time where the state is reviewing it, where you'll feel like nothing is happening, but that is just the process the way it is. So based on the timeline, it looks as though it would be in effect in June of 2022. That concludes my presentation, and I'm available for any questions.
Thank you, Bonnie. I think you did an excellent job on that presentation. And the backup was good job. Easy to read and understand. Any questions from the commission? Commissioner Tom Peck.
Just a quick one. I could have sworn I read it, but I can't find it now. We haven't amended the comprehensive plan since the 80s?
That's correct.
I thought there was a state requirement, you had to do it every 5 years or every 7 years?
We do it every 7 years, that's right.
Okay.
There was I'm sorry.
And we haven't done that?
No, and yeah, it typically, that is the requirement of the state, is that you review it every 7 years. You prepare a report and you make changes because the law changed. In fact, there's been almost 500 changes in the law. And that's why I'm doing a different approach with this municipality, because typically if you do it every 7 years, you'll basically create a matrix and say, okay, since 2011, there's been 150 changes, and then you just change those things. Well, with 487 changes, the state said, don't even bother with that matrix. Just start and go by current law and just strike the whole thing in its entirety. And that's just the place we're at. I don't think you had a certified planner.
I don't know if we've had a certified planner, but there was a 2008 evaluation and appraisal thing. What is if you could clarify, what's the difference?
That was the intent of that, and I did see that document. I can't remember, someone from the town did email it to me.
Okay.
And I called the state about it. Unfortunately, I don't think the person who did it was a planner, because they didn't go through the matrix. They basically looked at your comp plan and said, okay, did we do this goal? Did we do that goal? But that's not what an ER is. An ER is going through the laws to make sure. And actually, you should do both things. You should see, are there goals we've met that we could just take out and create new goals? But what the state wants to see is, we changed this law in 2015 when you need to address sea level rise. Where is your goal, objective, and policy to speak to that?
Okay, so the 2008 item was not sufficient and not,
It was
okay.
never adopted.
Okay.
It was a long, when they do their report, it's the objections, recommendations, and comments report, also known as the ORC report.
Okay.
There was so much in there, and I really don't think it was the fault. I think the person did their best.
Right.
But it just wasn't what the state wanted.
Okay.
So it was never adopted.
Okay, thank you.
So that's why we're starting over.
Okay, Commissioner Fender, were you first? Okay,
I don't know if
Commissioner
I'm
Fender?
first. Yeah, I was, just anecdotally, I love this document. I've looked at it several times, and it is 32 years old. And every time I look at it, I pour through it, I'm like, God, I must know some people that lived here then, because I've been here 18 years. And I'm always intrigued, because I look at it, and the only name I recognize is Joe Capper.
His name is on the front of the 1989 comp plan.
Yeah.
And guess what he gets to work with on it again, because there's a whole transportation element. I know he can't wait.
Yeah. Now, there's a paragraph I'll read, if you'll indulge me. It says here, in the 1989, there's an economic mix in Sewalls Point crossing the various class lines from low to high. The range of incomes includes retirees and those persons still active in business occupations, as well as a few winter-only occupants. In 1980, consensus infers that 5 seasonal dwellings exist. No change in this is anticipated. A tapestry of varying lives and lifestyles is reflective in the economic makeup of the people of Sewalls Point. There's 5 seasonal dwellings. I don't know what that was about, but
Times change for sure. Commissioner, oh, I'm sorry.
And it is interesting, it's a 30-year plan, so the 30 years are way up. But it's a 30-year plan that you're supposed to adopt update every 7 years.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Campo?
Yeah, the thing that you didn't say was written in crayon because Joe was in kindergarten when he wrote it.
that's right. I don't know how he did it. Yeah.
He was in kindergarten when it was first written.
I think it was a great presentation. I think it's a big task, and you were able to break it down fantastically. And I've known Bonnie for a long time, and Kevin, they're great people.
Since we moved here, basically.
Yeah. So, you know, my big question with everything is how much is it going to cost?
The cost is $200,000. And as a comparison, I know that sounds like a big number, but as a comparison, you would have to compare it to a brand new comp plan, because that's what this is. So there have been Westlake, Estero, and Village of Indiantown are through 3 municipalities who had to do a new comp plan. Estero's was like $270,000, and Indiantown's was $150,000, but they did not have a coastal element. So this is right. This is just, there's just so many facets and so many man hours behind it. And I did my best to break it out, like what would be administrative, because some of the data can be collected by my office manager. But when it gets to the analysis part, you really need a certified planner for those tasks.
Okay.
So, I'm sorry, I'm being a smart aleck again. Indiantown has a power plant and 8 ethnic groups, and theirs is less expensive than ours. We have probably a third of their citizens. I believe in the work Bonnie's doing. The fact that it's been 30 years since us not really revising it, in a sense, says to me that it's not really being used from the town. I mean, I understand that there's state pressure. I don't understand what that is. I don't know, did we get a copy of that, or that's just some... It's okay. So I had mentioned this to the town manager because, you know, our commercial usage, as you say, in the last 30 days, 30 years, it was basically Benihana, Prawn Broker, and a bunch of residential homes 30 years ago is still, but Prawn Broker might have outside music, so that might change everything, who knows. My question was, with other small towns, people come to me with financial planning needs, and they ask for complicated charitable remainder trusts, 401ks, and I say, well, we got to get that document. But the government provides documents for those things. I refer them to attorneys, but my question is, are there prototype documents from the Florida League of Cities where we can plug and tweak rather than starting off from scratch. And it's hard to justify for me $200,000 for a document that we're not referring to on an ongoing basis when we have so many other needs.
And you really do want to have a plan. I mean, in order, so what I did ask the state is what happens if you don't do anything? Well, one of the things that I think Michelle mentioned is an adaptation area, which would position you for grants to prepare the town for flooding. So there are grant opportunities that you would not be able to be eligible for if you don't have a comp plan because you're going to be out of compliance with the state. So it is important that you do it.
Has anyone said, I mean, we just got that same thing with the sprinklers. I know it's a sore subject, but hopefully we get that money from the South Florida Water Management District because we're monitoring how people water their lawns in anticipation of being in their good graces. But have there been instances, Michelle, that you're aware of that were denied grants because of this? Or, I mean, how did we get along 30 years without having to pay $200,000? I mean, it's another example of kicking the can down the road, but it's just a lot of money, you know, for something that's going to sit on the shelf.
But it's over 2 fiscal years. I mean, it is a long project. It's not like I said, I did break down how many man hours for each thing.
I'm sure your charges are, you know, commensurate with the fair, but it's
They are.
for 2,000 people with from Brook to Benningham and 800 homes, 900 homes.
Commissioner Campbell, did you ask Michelle, did you ask her a question?
I did ask
Did she want-
Michelle if there's any prototype Florida, was it the
Like a template.
local community, what's it, the Vinnie's, what was that?
Treasure Coast Regional Planning Council.
Treasure Coast, I'm doing the Treasure Coast.
Sorry,
Regional
Treasure Coast.
Planning. He's- We're doing it.
League of Cities.
When I told Michelle, she says, hey, we should do that, and then we should sell it and make money.
No, there really isn't a template. The template is the state statute.
Okay.
The requirements by the law. And that's how I built the scope of service and the timeline based on what needed to be collected, what reports had to be written, et cetera.
Right.
That's how it was based.
I too was concerned about the cost when I saw it. I think, like I said, the presentation's great. I believe in the plan. I think we need to follow the laws, do it correctly, but it's a lot of money. And so I had some questions. First of all, and like I said, you seem super qualified. Seems great. Did we put this out for bid? Did we shop the, can we shop this? Is it, or was it already done? I'm sorry, I don't know. Yeah.
That was what you did in December.
Okay, okay, the one person, yes, okay.
The scope of services was for this particular project and other projects, like if I needed to review a site plan, that would be reimbursed by the developer.
Okay, I remember now. I apologize for that. And then I had an idea. Did you want to answer his question?
When you're done, I'll answer.
Okay. Oh, no. I was contemplating waiting till next budget season. We have all these other unknowns, and I don't see the reason to make an amendment right now to, I believe it was 122,000 this fiscal year, if that's correct. And I look back here, and that seems like because we have gone 30 years without it, maybe we could really see how it fits into the budget properly and accurately, even though I do really think it needs to be updated, because I have looked through it myself, and you can see it needs to be updated.
Chief's gonna have to issue a lot of speeding tickets.
Town manager, did you want,
Can't even see her, but we're on the same page.
did you want to answer Commissioner Campo's question? And
Yes, so, Madam Mayor, Commission, you know, it is a lot of money. At the end of the day, it's a lot of money, and this commission's priorities are exactly what we heard from the grant presentation. It is stormwater and raising the road and resiliency. And so to have to take $200,000 of cash flow and move it for something that we haven't used, with the biggest hammer that the state uses against us is that we can't do a future comp plan amendment, it feels like it's something we can drag out and delay. I do have Glenn on the phone for his legal opinion. I can tell you that from what I've heard from our legal team and from Bonnie is that this is basically the cost of doing business if you want to be a municipality in the state of Florida. The conversation I had with Vice Mayor Campo is really, there's a ton of small towns like ours, very small population with maybe 95% of the entire town being residential and the other 5% in essence commercial. we don't have the heavy industrial, we're not manufacturing, we don't have, grand institutional. So it feels like there should be a template that allows us to call out our needs for the 95-5 ratio, and then say we could operate the balance of needs with the Martin County plan. If that doesn't exist, then, as I said to Vice Mayor Campo, we should create it. That's just the way I think about it. And there is also going to be a grant that we have applied for resiliency, and that potentially could be $75,000 that could help with the coastal community portion. So to answer your question, that's the only information that I have. So I've reached out to to the Treasure Coast League of Cities. I've reached out to the Regional Planning Council based on your feedback, and I have not received answers back other than the same questions. Everybody's going, scratching their heads. So it's become a good question that everybody wants to get answered.
We'll cut you in for 10%, okay, Bonnie? Sell it.
I think that the question, to answer your question, though, I would have to refer to Amy Adams. From a historical perspective, if it has ever been an issue or hampered getting grants in the past, I am not familiar with that, but that doesn't mean that it won't be in the future.
So Bonnie knows all this information, but so Florida was one of the first states to put together a comp plan, comprehensive comp plan process, and it was in the late 70s, and it was sweeping legislation that led up to the Clean Water Act and all those things to try and clean up our estuaries and our water bodies. Endangered Species Act was in there too. But Florida was one of the few states that stepped up. Florida and California were the two big states that stepped up and said, we have to begin to work on controlling growth and managing it through our comp plans. So at that time, you got money to do your comp plans. Everybody got money. But those planning grants aren't necessarily available. In the meantime, Florida, with 4 hurricanes hitting our shores every year, has redirected its focus and efforts on planning for hurricanes, which is called resiliency, right? So I just spoke with Joe, and I guess you did put in for the Florida Coastal Resiliency Grant, which is $75,000. It sounds like it's going to be pretty, possibly, if you're going to do a grant. After that, you get a $500,000 grant to go out and implement that planning. So I've known Bonnie for years over at Martin County and so forth. There's not very many well-read planners out there that have the depth of knowledge that she has here as far as comp plans. And you can take a cookbook method and do it. But it was my understanding, talking to Michelle, that she was trying to really take a coastal resiliency comp plan type of effort, which is very different from your cookbook method of comp plans and all your ordinances and all that sort of thing up on, loaded up through the web. So, you can certainly get that information. You can have, a cookbook, stormwater, master plan as part of it and so on. But if you're going to really move in this resiliency, you guys are like the poster child for resiliency, right? You are the peninsula that's sticking out in the middle of these water bodies, and you're at what, 4 feet high in some places? That's not very high. And you're going to all be in the coast, the flood zone in 2100. So in order to really plan ahead, this would be a tool that would gain you money because you're organizing your thoughts and you're planning ahead. And Florida loves to plan. They're really into planning. So, we've done a lot with stormwater plans. We're trying to take on this resiliency plan. I'm not saying that, the 200,000 is a magic number, but you could take some of that 75, if that is awarded, and start patchworking it together. Because we've done this before, once one agency gets a little bit of the information, they say, oh, okay, well, we can give you an extra 50 for that, because we'd like to see the first resiliency comp plan done. So, I'm not going to tell you what to do. It's just that's sort of the thought process of where you are going, and you guys are the poster child for this. You and Anna Maria Island and, the Florida Keys. Florida Keys have been doing this method, this whole resiliency thing for years now. And, you know, so, and they've got a lot of money from the state. You know, they basically have handled all their septic tanks. So I'm just saying, it's, you're stepping into a different arena, and you're becoming one of those known communities that is all about resiliency, because it's the only way you're going to survive, you know, as far as,
Okay.
so.
Thank
that's
you,
just what
Amy.
I-
Any other? Commissioner Campo?
We can play around with numbers, because I think this is the first time we've kind of heard this, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So if we took the cookbook or, you know, kind of stripped down version and didn't get so aggressive, do you think that we could save money or go back to a prototype? Or I'm surprised the state of Florida doesn't even have like an exemption for, you know, communities that are under a certain size. That if we went with a textbook without the bells and whistles, with resiliency and, you know, all that. And by the way, FEMA just went the other direction with the flood zones. They actually took the most hazardous flood zones and moved them east. That's why we're getting a lot of building on South Sewalls Point Road, because our building codes are contingent upon whether it's an A zone or a B zone. The B zones have virtually disappeared, which makes it a lot easier to build homes, and I think that's what we're getting. But ironically, you know, FEMA, that does the flood maps, actually went in the other direction. But anyway, if we had a stripped down plan without some of the bells and whistles with resiliency, would you have any idea, or could you get Michelle like?
I could talk to her, but resiliency is required. That was the 2015 law.
Required.
So there are things that have to be in there. And, you know, the resiliency piece, let's say that you did want to do an adaptation area and resiliency, you wouldn't be able to adopt it until you got your plan up to date. So this is like the very first step. So basically, it's this, and the attorney can back me on this. What is required is in law. It's not like you can say, well, I want to do this, but I don't want to do this. You have to do all of it to get into compliance, and that's why there's 9 elements. But the resiliency is not an option. You have to do that.
Okay, thank you, Bonnie. Commissioner Fender, I believe Glenn wanted to say something. I don't
Sure,
know
go
if
ahead,
you want
Glenn.
to- Okay.
Okay, Glenn, you're on.
General, don't have a comprehensive plan, it's not as if there's a fine or something like that that occurs. However, I would imagine that there may be grants that might require you to have a comprehensive plan. If you don't have that, you may not be eligible for whatever grant it is. And we am concerned that if we adopt ordinances, zoning ordinances, stormwater ordinances, things like that, issue permits, they always have to be in accordance with our comprehensive plan. And as Bonnie said, our comprehensive plan is old. And it's just, it's a risk. It's always that risk assessment. If you don't do this, and the town obviously hasn't done it for many years, as opposed to, budgeting and doing a little bit each year. Now all of a sudden you're faced with, a couple $100,000 to make up for 20 plus years of not updating it. But it's, it might be worth it to, I hate to ask this question of the state, what would they do if we don't adopt the comprehensive plan? Because they're well aware that we haven't had one in a long time. And they gave us an extension until this April to adopt one. So what would be the penalty? And we can look into what could be the penalty if we don't adopt one.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Fender?
So that is a good question about what the penalties are, although we've survived 32 without it. But first of all, let me say that great presentation, Bonnie. I think we do need a comp plan, and I'm glad we're looking at updating it. But I guess now I need to understand from our financial people where this fits in the budget and what was allocated and how this fits. And so I personally like the template idea, and I like to find some creative ways to get to a comp plan with either grants, stretching it out, and I put it in context of wow, we just spent $150,000 on a playground, tangible, and I can go out and swing on that. versus the roads we're raising on. We've got some big projects in the works, and I think our budget is gonna be severely stressed because of the things that were going on right now. And we need to do this. We just need to put our creative hats on how we're gonna pull this off. And so maybe you already have. So there you go. That's why you're here.
Speaking of creative hats.
There you go.
All right,
If I
Cheryl?
may, Madam Mayor, so the town manager and I did sit through a budget analysis just earlier this week and looked at what our projections are and where we're at year-to-date. We did notice, so the good news is we had not originally allocated or recognized the Martin County Utilities reimbursement for North Sewalls Point in this year's budget. So we are still waiting on $116,000 from Martin County Utilities, which I believe, Amy, we should be getting in the next week or two. Lou said that that was okay to reimburse without. And I believe town manager took care of that with Mr. Capra. So we do have that revenue that we could recognize, as well as we are already at more than 60% in building permit fees, and as well as road impact assessments. So we looked at what a 20% increase in that budget would be, and it would be sufficient to cover the cost of the comp plan that would be needed in this fiscal year.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, town manager?
Madam Mayor, so the short version is, thank you, Jack, for all the work you're doing, and the building official.
Yes.
And the incredible amount of work that's going on out there, and
Right.
that's going to be our saving grace. And it just happens to fall in a year when we have a lot of work and a lot of building going on. So our building and permit fees will assist us in that area.
Okay.
Additionally, as we start to talk in the March 6th meeting again about the road impact assessment, that will help us with one of the other issues. Just wanted to bring it up real quick. And that is the amount of debris, whether it's gravel, sand, left over from the large trucks in South Sewalls Point, will be able to increase the cadence and rotation of street sweeping.
Okay. Okay. You fellow commissioners, you can help me out. I feel like we all agree we need a plan. The presentation was great. Seems like she's going to provide a great service. I think the question is, do we want to move forward immediately, or do we want to talk to the town manager on our own before the next workshop it again, or move it to the next meeting? I look for your input here, because though I trust what Cheryl and Michelle said, it seems Commissioner Fender.
Well, just to answer your question, I have to say, this is the first it's coming to me, and I've had no thought time on it, so I would like to at least have a week to noodle it.
Madam Mayor, we don't need an answer tonight. We really, at this point, are showing you the information we're receiving as we receive it.
Okay.
So we're going to continue to do our due diligence to figure out how to pay for the full amount, but we'll go into the incremental pieces and, like we do our projects, pay as we go.
Okay.
And when there gets to the point where we need to stop, we'll put it on pause and bring it back to you and let you know where we're at. But we anticipate at some point finishing this project.
Yes, I do too. Keywords at some point, yes. Okay. All right, well, so, Commissioner Campo.
Yeah, I know we're not voting tonight, but I would not vote for spending $200,000 on this. I think we need to spend a lot more time finding templates and prototypes, and that's what we need to be spending time on. We could build 2 sidewalks that has been lacking 2 of them for the price of this, that's going to sit on the shelf. I'm sorry. I can't justify it.
Okay.
So I think we need to spend my own personal opinion is we need to spend a lot more time finding what others have done in order to keep it more reasonably priced.
Okay. Thank you, Commissioner Campo. Town Manager, would you reiterate what you just said about how you were going to, you said you were going to look at, to cover the full cost this year. Just, will you please restate what you said?
My intention is to continue to move forward with the preliminary information that we have to provide to the state, gather in the data that we will need to put together. And as you see from the Gantt chart and the project timeline that Bonnie has provided for you, she's phased out the billing process. And so I agree with Vice Mayor Campo that that's a large number. And so we will also continue to look and see if there is some type of template that the state allows
Okay.
for us to give a modified version of it. Your request was, is there a way to shop this around? And I mean, you know, I can look at Bonnie and we can see if there's a way to renegotiate some of this costs, or see if there's some place that we can lean on and find out more information about what they've done in a modified version. At this point in time, what the planner is presenting to you is exactly what the state is asking for.
Okay.
To the commission's point, it's been this way for a long time, and obviously they've known it's been this way, and so I don't think that there's going to be a big hammer, especially during this year of COVID. I've already scribed a letter, we've already sent it up there and said we're running on a hardship, reduced manpower, and we anticipate finishing this, but it may not be in the year timeline that they're looking for it to get done, and it may be a modified version, but let me continue to work with Bonnie. She's, you know, like all know, she is part of Martin County, so she wants to make this right too.
Okay.
And let's get the information. But right now, what she presented to you was what the state was asking her for.
Okay. Excellent, thank you. Like I said, it was an excellent presentation. Oh, Commissioner Kurzman.
Yeah. The only thing I could think of is if we go forward and if we're going to find similarities, I would look for another coastal community like we have, whether it be like an Ocean Breeze, Jupiter Island, who has minimal commercial businesses, and see what they have in place already. It's just switching out names pretty much. It's more or less no different than, I guess, what an attorney would do. No offense, Glenn. But you get a cookie cutter contract and you just switch the names. I can't see, maybe I'm 100% wrong. No, okay.
I would say 50% wrong. The reason why you can't do that is because the data has to be specific to your town. So you can't copy and paste another town. You have to see what kind of housing you have in your town. And like I said, it's prescribed by state law. Can you get goals and objectives that are similar? Absolutely. But the data is what is so expensive because it's specific to you and it's prescribed by law.
Okay.
So I would say you're 50%.
Thank you, Bonnie.
Thank you. It was a great presentation.
Yes.
We're making progress.
Thank you very much. And we're making,
Very colorful. Like that.
and we're making progress in the meeting, slowly but surely. Okay. Item E, Town Manager Contract. Commissioner Tompeck, did you want to?
Sure, I'll try to keep this as brief as possible. At the last meeting, there was a brief discussion of the town manager's contract relative to the end of the term, which is currently identified as October the 21st of this year. And I don't have all the background on this, so please throw something at me or yell at me if I go out of bounds here. I wasn't part of the most recent evaluation by the town commission, but I did look at the reviews, and those reviews indicated that the commission was very satisfied with town manager's performance, and there wasn't any indication that there was a plan to replace her or to search for a new town manager. If that's the case, the contract should be modified, and I'd recommend that we simply take out the wording on the term and replace it with indefinitely. I don't think that creates any problem, since Michelle is an at-will employee, and don't take this personally, and can be terminated anytime pursuant to the provisions of Section 4 of the contract. I happen to be an at-will employee as well, so I'm very familiar with some of these terms. So I think that's one thing that we can do. The other item, and this is the one where I may need a little bit of background or correction on. In Section 3B of the contract, in addition to the annual reviews, there's supposed to be a discussion regarding salary. I don't know if that happened last year or not. If it didn't, we may wish to have that discussion, well, tonight or in the near future. So those are the two items of concern. Now, like I said, I don't remember or don't know if there was a discussion regarding salary when the performance reviews were done or not. So those are two items that I had looked at. The rest of the, I didn't see any other areas of concern in the contract, but, there may be some others that either the town manager wants to bring up or town commissioners.
Thank you, Commissioner Tompeck. Any comments from other commissioners? Commissioner Campo?
As usual. I think Michelle's doing a great job. I know that this is her first time on the job. I don't know if anyone watched the Super Bowl.
Yes.
I equate her to Kansas City Chiefs quarterback, Mahomes. He's great stats going in, great energy, but wasn't quite Tom Brady. So I think there's a lot of things that come flying in the real world with this type of position, and there's nothing like experience. Experience is a good thing, and input to the local community. So I think it's a little early to suggest we renew the contract now. I think we can ask Michelle, does she desire to stay, and if so, under what terms? And I agree with you that our evaluation process, it has come a long way, because again, I know I'm repeating myself, but for the 8 years prior to this, same commission that did the sidewalk fired a town manager, and it cost us $80,000 or $90,000. And when you look back, they didn't do a single annual review. And we've improved because we've done one annual review in the last, I think, 2 or 3 years. But I think the annual review needs to have, we do the annual review, we pass it off to the attorney, and then it's an uncomfortable situation. Michelle's a nice person, we work closely, this isn't some big corporate structure. So I would like to see an annual review process that had goals for the next year. I mean, if you're in a corporation, you have goals for the next year. And, you know, I think setting things like credentialing, if we're going to go indefinitely, and Michelle is going to make a commitment to be here for a long term, that's something that we can, we should look at, I think. I think the evaluation process should put the burden on the attorney and the sitting mayor to culminate in not just communication, because there was one aspect of our evaluation that was lacking in every person's, you know, it was still a great score. But we need to do more with our evaluation. We need to use it also to set goals for the next year. And it could be up to the mayor to say, you know, these are what the goals need to be. But I think there's a lot of stuff that's in progress right now. But, you know, this thing on South Sewalls Point Road is not going to be, you know, not going to be pretty. So I'd like a little bit more time. We're basically halfway, halftime. I'd like to have Michelle stay. I think she's done a great job. But the experience of having all these things, especially in this town, people just walking in and expecting, you know, check out my plant line, you know, come down and measure the distance to the road. I mean, this is peculiar stuff. I think that a little bit more time would give some of us a little bit more confidence in going with that type of term, of calling it an indefinite contract. And here's the thing, the reason that evaluations weren't done for 8 years is the same reason that we've only done one in the past 3 years. It's uncomfortable. So I would say, make part of the process, you know, and flush out the details of the evaluation. So if we had standards and goals that were part of the evaluation, it's uncomfortable, but I would say make that part of the contract, not just fill out a form, pass it to the attorney, and then put it on the consent agenda. What's the sense? We all have annual reviews with employees. That's the time that we say, these are the great things, these are the things that we need to improve. We haven't done that. So this has less to do with Michelle than it just does with the history of Sewalls Point using the evaluations for an effective tool. And people grow close. I mean, Tina is the matron saint of Sewalls Point, but right behind her is whoever is the town manager. People bring cookies, and there's a personal relationship. And then when you sit on the commission, it's difficult to have a constructive evaluation process. So if we're going to include that as far as the agreement and say that the annual review includes goals set, put the burden on whoever is the mayor at the time. So then when we look back, did we finish the project? Did we have 2 months when there was, not the best result? Or, did she pull a rabbit out of the hat? No, I think she's pulled a rabbit out of the hat with COVID and all that. But I'm not in favor of an indefinite contract unless we can put the burden on future commissions to take a moment and look at the evaluation and come up with achievable goals to the next level. And a goal that I would like to have is a credentialed, someone that is credentialed by the, is it ICMA? I think would be a good thing. So
What is the ICMA?
it's the organization that helped us select
Okay.
Michelle, went through the process, the municipal administrators.
Okay, all right, thank you. Commissioner Tompak?
I think you're putting a couple of things together that don't necessarily need to go together. I've seen a lot of these employment contracts or whatever, and I've never seen any one of them that had an initial term there because they are at-will contracts. In other words, you can put it there, hey, this is going to run out in 2 years, going to run out in 3 years. You don't need to put it there because they are at-will employees. So you can terminate them anytime you want. The other thing, I've never seen in an employment contract, you can talk about an evaluation, based on, for a salary review, but the contract doesn't go to the specifics of a performance plan or performance goals. I agree we should have them, but you wouldn't put that into a manager's contract or an employment agreement.
Yeah, there are other, let's call them exhibits at the end of our contract regarding that are attached. So I would be comfortable in doing something like that. But again, having the discipline of telling the future commissioners, you need to go through this process because it's an uncomfortable process that we spent dearly. And again, it's something that we should pass on to the next commission.
And would it be your intention, if at the end of the 2-year period, would it be your intention to have another finite period for,
No, what I'm saying is if you're going to go for an indefinite contract, then there should be a stipulation that there is an annual review to bring it to a head and say, hey, time out, let's take a look at this, and let's assess what we're expecting from this person in the next year. I think there always needs to be an annual review. If you want to,
and that's in the contract now, so I'm not sure how that would change.
well, it would be to list the specifics that evaluation process needs to go through. It's painful. Paul Luger didn't do one on Pam Walker, and, now we got stuff that hasn't been done, and I'm sorry, everyone gave her 5s. I did not give her a 5. A lot of this stuff is kicking the can down the road, and it causes us to say, hey, time out, let's have the conversation, because it's an uncomfortable situation. So I think that's the piece that I have a real problem with, is an indefinite contract without some ongoing monitoring. And then, the next commission, we're gonna throw them, you might say you can't bind the hands of future commissions. Well, if we're gonna give them an indefinite contract and you have new people coming on, they're not quite sure the lay of the land, and then you're not gonna have the teeth of an annual evaluation that's got goals, I just sense it's gonna turn back into what it was in the future.
Commissioner Fender?
So I can see both sides of this, and I'm going to say that I've probably done, I feel like I've done 4 evaluations in my short tenure here on the dais, and I've never given all 5s to anyone, including Pam, who I love dearly, certainly more than you, and that's not a slam. I had a great working relationship with her.
I love her too, I just didn't.
And then I put Michelle on the Tom Brady side of that that metaphor, but Likewise, I didn't give her all fives either. But that said, I completely concur that, I see value in the structure of the contract. It's an at-will. She can leave anytime. If she says, I'm out of here, you guys are driving me crazy. And likewise, I assume we could do the same. I see the value in an annual review, and I completely agree with you. We should be doing that, and I didn't know Luger didn't, but I feel like I remember evaluating Pam more than once. That said, I also see some value in termination or contract length. What's the word?
Finite?
Yeah, a finite definition around any contract, which means if somebody is doing a stellar job, Tom Brady style, regardless of what the contract length is, and also judging the pain you're going to go through to replace that resource, you're going to negotiate the contract either side. So you're going to either negotiate the contract painfully and interview 100 people and find a new one and negotiate with them, or you're going to use this opportunity to either easily and painlessly extend the contract with the person a finite definition of who's doing a phenomenal job, and enter into a new finite defined contract. But let's go to the other side of that. Let's say that it's not a stellar job, and just the structure of the instrument is such that 2 years is coming, this has been a nightmare, it's going to be pretty easy not to renew the contract. Not that we would ever do that. I'm just saying that's the value of the structure. If somebody's doing a great job and all the reviews every year define, even in the case of Pam Walker, if there were 4 5s and 1 2, that's still a 5-commission vote to renew a contract, even if, personalities are what they are. You're not going to get along with everybody, and it's possible that there's a personality disagreement among one person of the dais. That still should not drive that employee away, really. I mean, I'm just saying, I don't have a problem with this, and I think also there's in the negotiation of any contract, it's a two-sided agreement. The person that you might want to enter into the contract with knows that their contract is ending in a certain number of months, and will come to you and say, I'm probably not going to renew this contract again. And we would say, really, that's a bummer. What would we have to change about this contract to get you to stay? And then we might say, I don't know if I can live with that. But I guess we have to go for a search. Or, my point is, if you throw that leverage point out of your hiring instrument, you've lost the ability of some level of communication. So I guess I'm not on the tenure side. Not that I don't want you to be tenured. I'm just saying it makes it even much more difficult to remove a difficult situation should it arrive. Not that it ever will, but I'm just saying there's value in the strength of that contract. And I think it's evolved over time, and Glenn would probably have more to say about it than I am. I'm not a lawyer, but I right now don't have a problem with this contract unless the person who's entered in the contract comes to me and says, I have a real problem with the contract I'm in. I'm like, oh, okay, well, let's talk about it. I'm sure we can figure it out and come up with a reasonable negotiation. Yes. That's just my take.
Okay. Thank you, Commissioner Fender. Commissioner Kurzman?
Yeah, I'm of the belief that I'm sure our town manager doesn't mind going through a yearly review. It's not a big deal. But I think that if we are happy with her, it wouldn't be a bad idea, and if she's happy with us at the same time, that we do try and make an agreement come to look toward the future, instead of finding out 3 months before renewal that she's not really that happy, or we're not that happy. I think it's better to look ahead, because last time, that process that we had to go through to find a town manager and to see what came through the door and the applications we got, it was horrifying. I mean, I don't wish that on the next commission or any commission to have to go through a manager search like we went through before.
It's part of the job. I mean, we just do.
I can't, and it's no offense to Pam, I like Pam, but Michelle and Pam are in 2 different leagues.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I've just seen significant difference with the people that Michelle has brought in versus the crew that Pam had brought in. All you had to do was look in the town clerk's office. The first time I came into the town clerk's office, I'd never seen more papers and stacks of things and things that were lost, and how much money our previous town manager lost us because things weren't done correctly. And the mistakes that were made by the town clerk because the town manager wasn't watching the town clerk and who wasn't really that competent. I just feel when you have something good, you don't want to lose it. What we have now works. And I personally would find it to be a nightmare if the town manager we have suddenly walked out or decided she didn't want to stay, or...
Wrap this around to the contract. I'm not sure where you're going with it.
No, I'm just trying to say that I'd rather know where we're going to be. I'd like to basically plan to the future and see if the town manager would be interested in staying, number one. Number two, I feel that we should start pursuing this earlier on rather than get a surprise later. I don't mind doing evaluations, anything like that. It could be once a year, twice a year, it doesn't matter. I agree, like, we should come up with maybe more goals, what we're looking for, that's fine. But at the same time, I don't think we should prolong this either.
So I want to
Okay.
clarify the topic then, because what I
Thank
heard
you,
Tom
Commissioner
Peck
Kurzman.
say is that he was thinking about adjusting the contract. Are we actually, that's
And-
not what I hear Commissioner Kurzman saying.
I think he's just giving his thoughts on the contract in general, but yes.
What is our goal of this agenda item is my question.
Well, let's ask Commissioner Tombeck. He was talking about making it indefinite, I believe, because it's
Well, I
virtually
think,
the
you
same
know,
thing.
the thing was that it came up at the last meeting, and the discussion didn't seem to go anywhere in what we were planning on doing. And when we looked, and it was also brought up at the last meeting, that if you don't plan on going past October of 2021, you better start looking now.
Okay.
So that's why I brought it up, and that's why I think the October date is kind of, well, I understand why you put it in there originally, but I'm not sure it has a whole lot of relevance anymore. And I don't think you really want to be in a position where you're going to renew a contract every year or every 2 years. And I'm sorry, James, I'm not trying to, I think we need to separate the goals and the evaluation, regardless of the term of the contract, stays exactly the way it is, and you can determine what you want to do in terms of the goals, in terms of the evaluation. I don't think that's necessarily tied to the duration of the contract.
Thank you, Commissioner Tombeck. Commissioner, and that might be something that Glenn could answer about what is usually included. Commissioner Campo.
Okay, so let me try to create some framework so we can see where we all agree and where we all don't agree. I think that the item was put on the agenda initially because if we were going to start the search, we would need to start putting those wheels in motion. My feeling is this commission does not want to do that and wants to renew the contract with Michelle. So I think that's kind of what we agree. As far as the contract term being indefinite, I have an issue with that because I think this town has shown repeatedly that it does not step up and make the evaluation a good process. So the other side of that is, why was it on the agenda? Well, does the commission want to start the search process? I would think no. And the other part of the equation would be, does Michelle want to stay? And so if we can get that out of today, then we can figure out what the next step is as far as what we agree with and what we don't agree with. Tonight's not a mandate on, our desire to have Michelle to the degree that we want her here. But if we can just say, hey, it was on the agenda, if we were going to start the search, we should start doing it now. We decided not to do the search because we would like for her to stay. Then the next step, just like I asked Bonnie, how much? What do I ask everybody? How much? Why did the first process fail? Because we put a salary level of $80,000 because Kathy Muskowski, was saying, you know, why don't we try it? We got zilch. Everyone laughed at us, number one. Number two, we didn't use a real search firm. We used the free option, and the guy bailed on us when we narrowed it down to 3 options. So, you know, I don't want to mix, you know, folklore with facts, and but I think this commission, I'm not speaking for it, but I think what the consensus that I hear is this commission does not want a search process. This commission would like to have Michelle extended. I think now we need to hear from her whether she would like to stay. After that, then we talk about terms, salary, amount of time, and any other terms such as evaluations. So if anyone disagrees with that, let me know. I think we have some time. I think it's good that you brought it up, but I don't think we have to make a decision tonight. I think we just have to get some general direction.
Okay. I think it's good that you brought it up too. It got me thinking about it. And just for the record, I don't believe we discussed salary at the evaluation back in October, to your point at the very beginning. And if you guys all agree, I think we all want Michelle to say. I'm going to get to your thing in a second. I would suggest that we talk to her on our own, kind of get a feel for what she wants. You know, you guys are probably more familiar with this, and then come back at a later point to discuss that. Commissioner Fender.
I was going to say, so I agree with the refined content of this conversation, which is pretty much what both, I guess, you and Commissioner Campo have now articulated. We've introduced the concept, and now I don't think there's more to do other than talk to Glenn and let it simmer for a while. But your point is valid. Now's the time to start thinking about whether a search has to be entered into. So that's, to me, the question we're answering. And we won't answer it tonight, but.
I mean, I can answer it.
Well, it's not up to, I don't know, it's up to you. So,
Well, no, I meant I can answer for me, and then you guys could answer for you. Or,
okay, I think
Okay.
James has got it figured out, and, but it's not up to any of us, right, so.
okay.
Do you want to add anything, Michelle?
Madam Mayor,
Yes, you may.
this is your discussion. I serve at the pleasure of the commission, trying to think of some of the things that were said. I think, you know, I have to thank
How's your
Commissioner.
throwing arm?
Excuse me?
He said, how's your throwing arm?
Oh, yeah, and thank you for giving me the Tom Brady nod.
He's got a promising future.
He does, he does.
He's the future
He
of the
does.
NFL.
He does, I'm okay with it. Thanking Commissioner Tom Peck, because this is an item that is important not just for me to know if I'm going to be here, but you know, one of the reasons I brought it up for the January workshop is because truly, if you're not satisfied, which, you know, I didn't get that indication, but if you wanted to go out, this was the time, and I wanted to make sure we were all fair to each other. From a rating standpoint, you know, I've ranked out each time 4.7 out of 5. So that indicates to me that you're pretty happy with my performance. Again, I serve at the pleasure. So do all city and town managers and village managers in the state of Florida. And the majority of the ones that I know don't have 2-year time limits. And they don't, many of them, especially here locally, just don't have an end date to the contract. Why? Because if they're not doing the job, they'll get released. And there's always an ending. No matter how the ending is, whether it's because the contract runs out or one side of the arrangement decides it's time to move on, there's always an ending. And you take care of how that ending comes to fruition in the contract. Before you're there, when there's no emotion involved. Reviews are separate than the contract, completely separate. If you would like to put that there's going to be annual reviews, I have no problem with that. I come from an industry where I had to sign 3,000 reviews every year, and I was reviewed every year. And it does not make me uncomfortable to sit here, especially now on TV, now that we're live streaming, while I'm running the meeting, and get reviewed. I'm okay with that.
Okay. All right, thank you.
The last thing I would say, from a standpoint of credentialing, I have a master's in public administration, you know, and when I first started here, I asked, did you want me to get the ICMA? Because initially it was part of a discussion, and I am certified through FCCMA, so there wasn't a big desire from anybody to do it. I actually have the application for ICMA, it's just $1,000. That's how you get certified, you pay the fee. So I'm happy to do it. But I don't want there to be any thought out there that I'm not qualified. And that's what I wanted to end it with.
Okay, thank you. All right, I think we should move.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Okay.
We made our point made. Would you like to stay, and under what terms?
Yes.
I mean, we can go around this for 6 months, but we spent all this time and energy.
Well, are you ready to answer that now, or do you want to wait?
Yeah, and that is not, no, this was not my topic for discussion tonight. It's my opinion, and it's just my opinion, that, and historically, what I've known is that a commission typically appoints one person, and usually it's the mayor, to participate in negotiations, to get it to a final product, and then the final product is brought back to the commission. There's not all of this discussion typically in a real town, in a real city. And I recognize that each one of you want to have part of that conversation here in public, so that's fine. And I've seen that you've done that in the past, but it's not good for the culture of the town, typically. And you have an entire workforce that's also watching.
Yes. Okay,
I'm sorry, I'm going to have to take exception. We are a real town. We have existed for a long time. We've had historically some issues that I would like to incorporate within the way we renew the contract, okay? So the question is, would you like to stay? And if so, would you like to move forward with that conversation in the future?
So I'm basing this off of, you had said that you had previous problems
With yes.
with previous people. I didn't want to say that. I'm just saying, in a typical town where there's good structure, so that's probably a better way for me to say that. Yes, I wanted to stay. I want to stay in this job. No, I'm not prepared to have that discussion tonight.
Okay.
Because I don't even know exactly what the information each one of you want to give back to me.
no, that's fair enough. Well, let's discuss it on our own with the town manager and move it to another meeting when we have our thoughts better formulated. I think it's been proven that we would like her to say. I think that's all that needs to be said to her, and then we'll move on. All right. Item F, nuisance ordinance modification.
Let me get,
Glenn, I don't know if he's still paying attention, but
Glenn, you're still here, right?
might take a little break.
There he is. Nuisance modification, nuisance abatement.
If he could just lead into it. I spoke to him today, kind of give a little background before we talk about it. Oh, I'm sorry. Glenn, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, if you could just discuss the nuisance ordinance modification, just kind of give an intro, background, how it fits into our ordinances in general. Thank you.
Just give some background on the nuisance ordinance modification and how it fits into the conversation.
All right, thank you. You were breaking up a little bit just then. Good evening again, everyone. So the nuisance ordinance modification, there's really two parts to this. One, this ordinance, and then kind of a general look at code enforcement. This particular ordinance is one where the town has already declared certain things in
Michelle, could you ask him to speak loud?
in this case,
Glenn,
high grass.
can you speak up a little bit louder, Glenn?
Sure. So, in this particular ordinance, the town has already declared certain things such as, too high grass as a nuisance. What this ordinance does is add a tool to the normal code enforcement toolkit that says you can enforce this ordinance by actually going onto someone's property and cutting the grass and then billing them. And there's a process to do that. You go on, the code enforcement officer would cite the property owner, and within 10 days, the property owner would either request a hearing or not. If they don't request a hearing, then the town is permitted to go onto the property, cut the grass, and bill them for the cost. If they ask for a hearing, then there's a hearing set, and the special magistrate of the code board would decide whether the town had the authority to go on the property and cut the grass. This is different than the current situation where if someone has high grass, I'll use that as the example, that they could be cited and told that it's a violation of the code, and there's the hearing scheduled, say, 2 weeks before the magistrate or the board, and at that point, they would be found in violation or not in violation. I think the frustration from a staff standpoint is if someone has this high grass, they're giving the citation, and then before the date of the hearing, the grass is cut, nothing happens to the person. 2 months later, the grass is high again, and the town has to repeat this process again and again and again. The solution, in addition to this nuisance concept where you go on and cut the grass for them, is if somebody has high grass and the town gives them a citation and says, you're going to be in front of the magistrate on March 1st. And on February 25th, the person cuts the grass. Don't cancel the hearing. Have the hearing. Let it go forward. Ask the board, code board or the magistrate, for what's called a finding of violation. You're finding that this person was in violation of the code, even though they corrected it before this hearing, and we can't fine them because they corrected it. They're having that determination that there was a violation, and then there also could be assessed the town's administrative costs for bringing that case, which is generally a couple $100. The real deterrent is that once there's that finding of violation on the record, for the next 5 years, if that same property has the same violation, and the code officer goes out and says on, June 1st, you're in violation, starting on June 1st, before the hearing on June 15th, the fine starts running. And then when you have your hearing with the code board or the magistrate, let's say the person cut the grass on June 10th, 10 days later, before the hearing. But then you can say to the magistrate, you know what, we want to fine this person for every day from June 1st to June 10th because they're in what's called a repeat violation status. And the town has the authority to do that. And the fine, because it's a repeat violation, it doubles, and the amount could be up to $500. Now, that's a day. So obviously, if you have 10 days of uncut grass and it's your second violation, and there's been a judicial determination by the board or the magistrate, then you're looking at $5,000 plus the administrative cost. That's a pretty good deterrent, and that's the tool most towns use because the nuisance process that we're proposing tonight, again, is another tool to have, usually used when something is so bad and there's vermin and rats and pests and just needs to be cleaned up and the person won't clean it up no matter what the fine is. This gives you an option to do that. But the first option, the more traditional one, in the town has not generally been that aggressive and brought somebody to a hearing if they cut the grass before the date of the hearing. So if there's someone who's an habitual offender and you want to say enough is enough, we're tired of coming out here every 3 months to give you a warning and waste the time's resources, this is a way to do that. Either one of those two options. And the existing option is under general code enforcement. This procedure, this nuisance abatement is supplemental, in addition to. And you really can't do both at the same time. You can't, when you go to the property, the code officer is going to have to make a choice. We're either going to cite them for you're in violation, you're going to have a hearing, and we're not going to back off if you cut the grass in 5 or 6 or 7 days because we want that finding of violation because, frankly, you've been an habitual offender and we want to put an end to it.
Okay.
Mayor says, okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Glenn. That is a lot to process, and I welcome comments from the other commissioners. If you guys have read it over. Town Manager, did you want to add anything before we start discussion?
Madam Mayor and Commissioners, this is, as my memo says, this is just informational purposes during your workshop. We expect this to come back to you at the end of the month for a vote. Tonight is just informational. But we've clarified the authority to abate nuisances and the due process procedure to do so. Again, going back to comments that were from earlier, not everything has been clear within this town as to how to operate and how to create processes that will follow through appropriately. And an abatement process is a legal process. And so this is the attempt to make it appropriate.
Okay, thank you. Any comments from the commissioners?
Just to clarify the process on, this is not first reading, this is.
Correct, this is the workshop before the first
All right,
reading.
thank you.
That was easy. I'll just say I'm all for a process that makes it more straightforward and leads to less disagreement between residents and the town as to what is right or wrong and what the, how this should proceed. So I think that's a positive. If it's used judiciously, but I believe that's when it would go before the board, and they're the ones who are designed to decide whether to enforce strictly or not. Is that correct, Michelle?
Right.
Okay. I think it seems reasonable.
Yeah, seems fine to me.
If there's no objections, we'll put it on
Okay.
for first reading.
Okay. All right, thank you. That one was quick. No objections. Thanks, Glenn. Thanks, Glenn. I don't know if you heard me. All right, the last item, resolution number 889. This is to basically discuss the 2020 Martin County mitigation strategy. And I don't believe we have a copy of it. I believe it's very large, so. Joe, do you want to lead into it?
Yes, okay, Joe Capper for the record. In the past, I have explained to you that we are a member of the Martin County Unified Local Mitigation Strategy Group that meets. The town is a member of that. Just a couple key points. This is really a one component of the county. It's the county's emergency management program. And so I just want to make sure you kind of understand, the county pretty much sets up, let me just read it to you. They basically, Martin County Board of County Commissioners established the Martin County Emergency Management Agency, and that's their legal responsibility, and it's pretty much, it's an operational oversight delegated to the Martin County Fire Rescue Group, okay? And what I'm trying to point out to you is one component of that is to design a mitigation plan for the county, okay? This is important because those HMGP grants that I told you about, unless those projects are on the local mitigation strategy list, you do not qualify for that funding, okay? So you really need to be on their local mitigation strategy list. And the idea, the whole concept here, first of all, it's a group of us, a group of the local municipalities and governments. For example, Martin County's on it, City of Stewart, Town of Jupiter Island, Sewalls Point, of course, the Town of Ocean Breeze, the Village of Indiantown is a new member, Martin County School Board District, and there's various other public-private partnerships that are in this program, okay? Basically, every year, we adopt a local mitigation strategy. Essentially, what we do is provide a list of projects that various government agencies in the county want to have built or improved upon in their communities. And the idea is that basically, if a hurricane or any disaster strikes, they will be prepared for that disaster, and hopefully they'll basically won't have that many that much damage to a facility. We have put on our list, and just so you know, the city, the town of Sewalls Point has, of the top 10 projects on the list, we have 4 of them. There's South Sewalls Point Road Phase 2. I'll just tell you the number on it, okay? Phase 2 is the 4th ranked project. I can let you know the 1st ranked projects have dealt with Hope Heights, if you've heard about the flooding down by Hope Sound, okay? Those are on the list ahead of us, okay? But the 4th ranked project is South Sewalls Point Road Phase 2. The 5th ranked project is North Sewalls Point Road, raising that road. The 6th ranked project is Phase 3. The 7th ranked project is Phase 4 of South Sewalls Point Road. So I'm telling you that because that's how we are able to apply for those HMGP grants. And we have had an opening to file on both South Sewalls Point Road Phase 2, 3, 4, as well as North Sewalls Point with Martin County for the Michaels money, okay? That's basically a Hurricane Michael that hit the Panhandle, and they were given millions of dollars, and they have not been able to spend it. So we may qualify for some of that money, and then we can move and get some of the grant money that'll match the state money, okay? Anyways, point I was trying to make to you is we meet regularly, the committee of the different government agencies. I've been your representative, okay, on that committee since we started it, and we provide the projects to the group. The group ranks the projects amongst us all, and then obviously they file they file a document with the state about that, and that's the local mitigation strategy book that you have, okay? It's important that you recognize this, just so, and that you recognize that you are basically putting projects on the list so that you kind of make sure that that you agree with them, okay? That's what's important about this, because of course this group is only ranked amongst professional people, that they're not necessarily people that have been elected officials, is what I'm trying to point out to you, okay? And so the elected officials, you all control all of this, but this is one way of saying, hey, yes, we agree with what our town engineer is representing. And so, and of course, we obviously, when the money comes down at HMGP, you have an ability to collect, to get that money. So anyways, that's what this document's about. I could go into much detail about every little component in here. Again, it's about emergency management, and it's important that we are a member of this group. And again, it opens you up for grants. This one does open up for grants, okay? So it's important that we adopt it. And again, if there's anything on the list that you would rather see, you need to let me know that. There's other projects that we have on the list. For example, we did ask for some outfall repairs on India Lucy. That was ranked number 15. And there's about 22 projects on the list totally. We were number 14, the Knowles outfall was on there. Number 14, number 13 is the Periwinkle outfall. So we have other projects on the list. Town Hall, if we decide to harden this building, we're on that list for that too, number 11. So anyways, I think we're sitting pretty well on the list, and we just need to, if we need to use those or mitigate, provide some mitigation in these items, then we have an avenue to go after some grants for it.
Thank you,
Any
Joe.
questions?
Any questions? Nope, thank you very much. Yes, with no comments, I think that means that we're all ready to see it move forward, correct?
Correct. We'll bring this back to you for the resolution to adopt at the
Okay.
next meeting. I would ask you, as you read through this big packet, to pay attention to pages 22, 110, Appendix G.
I don't
And
think we
that's-
have it.
You have it right here.
I didn't get one.
You did.
That's all right. I'll get it later.
You have it right in your.
I've seen it before. I have the
April put it
comprehensive
on-
plan, my agenda.
April put it on in front of everybody.
already digested the whole thing.
And
I can look at it later. I'm not looking at it right now.
gives you priorities on pages 183 through 184. Those all those pages
plan,
speak
right?
to Sewalls Point.
But that's not the local mitigation strategy. Yeah,
No, we didn't get it.
I'll make sure you get it.
yeah. We can look at it later. This is just, we can look at it before we come to and work out any problems we have, which I don't think we'll have, so. All right. Commission and staff updates and closing comments. Are there any staff comments?
Do we have any staff comments from, I can't see my chief. You good?
There she is. Yes, I did see that.
Actually, yes. So,
Is that true?
yes, it's not a.
Yeah, some of you
portable-
may remember in the past, we used to have a porta-john over there, so we did have an ADA compliant porta-john installed, especially since we no longer have free access on account of COVID into the town hall, so see a lot of people going in and out, seems popular.
How long will it be there?
The plan is in perpetuity. I mean, we had it there for years before.
Wow,
I mean,
okay.
as long as you want to pay
I've
for
got
it.
some running friends are going to be really happy about
Yeah.
that.
We're going to be bringing you back on a consent agenda, less than a handful of contracts that we have left that were executed during COVID under the emergency. And this is one of them, and so we'll bring that to you on a consent agenda as well.
And it's month to month. We can cancel it anytime. They'll come pick it up.
Okay.
Okay.
Any other staff?
No other things, Madam Mayor. I would say on the last item that you guys were speaking about for my issue, if you'd like to talk about it in another workshop, if you want to create an appointment. I'm not quite sure. I'll have to go back and watch this again to see what everybody was saying, but I think I heard some concerns from Commissioner Fender. It said he matched something that Campo said, but I'm not sure, so I'll follow up with you on that. And quite honestly, from an ICMA standpoint, their recommendation is always, if you have 2 out of your 5 that are on your performance, then it's probably time to move on. So if that's the case, then I want to open it up for you to be able to start looking.
Okay.
So certainly give me the feedback.
Okay. Thank you. Commissioner comments now. Commissioner Fender.
Oh, okay. So, a couple of things, and I'll ask Joe to maybe answer some questions for me. But I had the opportunity on Sunday morning, I guess, before the sun came up, to actually jog around the peninsula, and so we said, why don't we break into the new construction? And so we ran down on the new space, because we didn't know what we were going to find, and it was now paved. So the pictures you showed tonight were pretty accurate with what we saw there. The road was amazing, and the curbs looked great, and the road was raised. You know, I hadn't seen it, and I live right around the corner, but so I was pretty excited about that. And then it occurred to me that I'm interested now on what's on the edges of that road, on the other side of the curb, if anything. Because we had that long conversation years ago now on decisions on curbing and siding and bike paths and whatnot. So I just wondered what the current plan is.
Okay, on the screen, you can see the point that Commissioner Fender was pointing out. You can see the curbing that picture on the right probably is the best one to look at.
The black one with the crane on it, right?
Pardon me?
The black top.
Yeah, the black top, and you see the 2 white curbs on either side. So essentially, that's about, represents 2 10-foot lanes, which will be striped down the middle, 2 10-foot lanes, 1 in each direction, and 3 foot on either side to the curb, okay, to the face of that curb, okay?
So the 3 foot is on this side of the curb, not on that side of the curb?
That's correct.
Okay.
And after the curb, then, and that's a good point that you're bringing up, we graded down to natural ground on people's properties. And we have had some concern on some people. They want some adjustments to that. We've been kind of approaching them one at a time. And so the point is we tie down to that. And as you recall, between the curbs, there's a crowned roadway, okay? And in that curb, there's an inlet in the curb itself. You don't see it on any of these pictures, I don't think, very well, but
way over there.
yeah, there's an inlet outside the back of the curb, so don't be confused by that one. The one I'm talking about is for the water that falls within the road in between the curbs, it goes into the inlets that are in the curb, okay? So, and they drain, and they will eventually drain to, they drain to the stormwater treatment area that hasn't been built yet. Mm-hmm. And currently now they're building the weir for that, but we are probably going to delay the building of that until we actually get approval on Part 3. We are going to put enough volume in there so the water can go through to the weir, but we're not building it because we need to use the fill from the stormwater treatment area they're going to excavate on the Part 3 work. So we don't want to have them to take that fill out, bring it back in. We want to keep it in town and just move it down the road when we get that permission. So I've told you more than you wanted to know.
Yeah, I don't want to take us too far off track, but I was going to ask you about so I was interested in the 3 feet.
Okay.
So I assume 3 feet, 10 feet, white line?
Yeah, that's 26 feet, right? That's 26 feet.
Yeah, and is it on both sides?
Yeah, well, the total is 26 feet.
Yeah.
3 foot.
Yeah.
A curb, which is 2 foot wide. We got 2 foot wide curb.
Oh.
3 foot of shoulder, 10 feet of road, right? So that adds up to...
Curb is not included in the 3 feet.
What's that?
Right, curb's not included in the 3 feet.
That's correct.
Right, okay.
So that's 15 feet on either side of the center line.
I only care about that 3 feet.
Okay, I just pointed it out. But remember, when you guys approved the project, you said you only wanted to use the width of the right-of-way that we had available, okay? And that's been discussed earlier tonight.
Yeah, I'm just-
The issue with right-of-way is, but I'm just pointing it out, we are filling the right-of-way up with lanes for the vehicular traffic, 3 foot of shoulder on either side, and 2 foot of alley gutter. That fills up a 30-foot right-of-way.
Okay. So will that, and that, it'll just be a paint line, none of those little balls, right? None of those bumps on the white line?
You don't want, what I think you're telling me is you don't want rumble strips on the white line.
Well, I don't want to knock a bicycle over when he's driving on that shoulder, and he happens to hit one of those round balls.
Okay, we can do that if you don't want to.
Maybe there's something else, but, you know, I'm not saying don't have rumble say, I'm just saying don't kill people. Because what we have now is painful.
So, okay, so you'd rather not have the only reason we put it there is because, as you stated before, we only have now in some cases, instead of 3 feet, we have half of that of shoulder. And what's happening is we wanted to make sure that they hit something because we wanted to
You're
get
talking
back in
about
the lane.
Yeah.
Yeah, cars can hit something, but the problem is I'm a runner and a biker, and I hit those too. It hurts me a lot more than it hurts a car.
Okay, we don't have to put the rumble strip on there if you don't.
No, I'm not wanting you to change your plan. I just want to introduce the concept that it's dangerous what we have right there for bicycle riders.
Okay.
I think we have some time, too.
Yeah, yeah.
Until we get to the top of the road.
Anyways, it looked amazing is really the way I started this conversation, so I was happy to see the progress. I didn't realize it was already paved, you know.
Yeah.
So. All right, cool, thank you.
Anything else?
Just quick announcement that haven't talked to Chief enough about it yet, and I'm not too involved, but I'm just introducing the concept that there is a marathon coming up first weekend in March 7th. It's a Boston qualifying. The route is entirely changed. It doesn't go up North Sewalls Point anymore, but it does stay on the south side, so you won't have to close the road on that side, but we should have a conversation about that offline.
And Mr. Mayor, Madam Mayor. Yes.
Yeah,
Mayor.
I am not in charge of it, by the way.
Okay, yes, Town Manager?
We absolutely need to be in communication, and they need to get authorization and meet with the town.
Absolutely.
Before we allow the streets to be shut down for these
Okay.
items.
I completely agree.
And it's
I think they'll be talking to you
unfortunate
tomorrow,
way
kind
to
of giving you
find
the
out
hint.
about it. Let them know.
And then, anything else?
I was curious about the commercial hookup on, since I saw Ike in the back. Anything happening with septic and sewer commercial?
Since you're asking, Ike, you can come up and answer the question.
Thank you so much, Ike Crumpler, for the record, and I just wanted to express my appreciation again that this board has showed throughout the process. Today, we sent over our letter of intent to the mayor and copy of the town manager that we're going to be coming forward with $125,000, which will hit what we look at as our total estimated cost is about $250, so that would be 50%. And we're thrilled for the opportunity and want to do whatever we can to help, as you know, with the process with the delegation as well. In
Is there any
as
kind
much
of
as we
time
can.
frame we're talking about?
I'm sorry?
Time frame, roughly time frame?
They come forward with the money, well, we have.
No, I'm talking about the actual hookup. Money I assume will resolve itself. When would we think this would be done, is my
Would we
really.
get money from, correct? We're looking for.
Let's say you got money, how long would it take?
Yeah. It's the appropriations that we put before, and so if that happens, then I believe the intent is they would pay their share.
Oh, we're waiting for our grant. Oh,
Yes.
okay.
Yes, yeah, we're together here at the mercy of the legislative process, but are very much encouraged by how it's gone so far. And I also want to give a big shout out to Amy too. She's been tremendously helpful, and Joe, the entire team. Joe's got me trained as sort of an apprentice engineer by all the questions I've asked and how generous he's been with answers and time. So it's just a world of difference, an incredible spirit of cooperation. We're very excited about this.
Awesome.
And just so you know, too, a little behind the scenes, I got a call from Michelle and Amy last week saying, look, we really need to know what your client's going to do. What are they going to come in on? And, so I let them know I had a presentation prepared. We had a pretty in-depth conversation. We were going to lay out the story, everything in detail, and to why this was the right time to come forward. And it's about a 2-minute conversation. They said, absolutely, we want in. This is the amount. So hopefully we'll be successful.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate it.
Are you all good?
I'm good.
Okay.
Sorry.
No, that's what it's for. Commissioner Campo?
Yeah, a couple of things, just miscellaneous. Joe, would you say that it's very likely now, hearing the news from Senator Scott, that mid-March, the communication or money comes to the state? I don't know what happens after that. But I think on our sign, we're saying projects diverted and project will be finished February the 11th. So, I mean, we're looking at least a month, maybe a month to get them back. Is that how you're reading? I mean, they're going to demobilize and we're going to have to take the 145 and, I mean, is that basically what we're looking at? Because
Yeah, that's true. I mean, obviously, if tomorrow I'll tell them that it's March, the middle of March, so they can plan on something. Because right now, I wasn't able to tell them anything. Now, remember, it's still a matter of when FEMA tells state FEMA that they've got the money.
Right.
And so I'm assuming there's a letter that says they've encumbered the funds, that they're going to get the funds, and then they'll write us a contract. Now, we may not sign, they may let us at least move forward with the process of constructing things, and the contract may come later. I don't know that yet, okay, but we'll figure that out. And we'll follow up, obviously. The town manager has been calling weekly to Holly Swift, as the lady's our project manager at the state level. So hopefully we'll kind of talk to her in the next few days to find out, okay, what's the process if that comes down? How long will that be? And once we know that, I'll obviously get with Cheatham, the contractor, and get them a schedule so they get back here as soon as possible. They would prefer not leaving, so, but they know they got to come back quickly, and they have some subcontractors. One of their subcontractors is Johnson Davis. They're the ones that are doing the underground work. Well, Johnson Davis is still there because they are finishing the water main right now. They will be doing a weir. They will be doing a few other items there, so they're probably not gone for at least 2 to 3 weeks. So it may be pretty close, that they may be gone for a short period is what I'm trying to say.
it's rather certain that we're going to have to pay the demobilization and remobilization, and that there will be vacant machines gone, right? And, right? That's basically, okay.
Yeah,
So whatever that ends up looking like, whether it's 45 days, which looks like it's going to be, or 30 days or 60 days, I think we need to get in front of that with, again, communication to the public, because people are going to say, wow, I guess it's all done. What about this big sinking part in the middle where the seawall is virtually on the road down by just before High Point? So people are going to, and when people don't get good, solid information, they make shit up.
Yeah.
I mean, they just do. And before you know it, it's this and that, and I wonder if this, and I wonder if this, king tide. So we got to get ahead of that communication. once we have
Good
that.
point, and just so you know, because these are a couple things that came from the contractor, how do you want us to leave it? Because, if you see up there, you see dirt up there now, right? And so I'm trying to, they're not totally finishing those areas, and they won't be, because we're going to be raising the road in some of those areas that are on those pictures up there. Now, yeah, they can finish the middle picture, they can finish that area, for example. The two middle pictures, they can do that. But as you look to the south, they still have to improve drainage and raise the road. So, they're going to go and just, I've told them to put a row of sod along the road and seed and mulch it, because we're just going to tear it up in 2 to 3 months.
Right.
So I just want you to know, that's what we plan on leaving, and we plan on probably, they'll still, in that area where they have the stormwater treatment area, there'll still be piles of fill over there. I wasn't going to have them seed and mulch that whole area, just the area to stabilize it so there's no silt that erodes into the road or into the storm sewer system or into the lagoon. So there's things I have to do, but I'm just telling you how we're going to leave it. And again, most of the equipment will be gone, okay? There'll probably be some remnant maintenance of traffic, those orange signs, because they're going to be coming right back. The message, probably, we can talk about whether we want something on the message board to say something, or we can decide, I think what you're pointing out is the neighborhood. most of the neighborhood knows that this is going on. They've been told they may have to believe. It's not me telling them that, quite frankly, it's the contractor. He's talking to these people every day. He's talking with them. Margarita, which is the road on the lower, in the middle there, most of those residents will be complete, right? They're done. It's finished in their areas. But Mandalay, that area is going to be kind of, have some areas that need to be raised still. And so is South Sewalls Point from, pretty much from Mr. Haas's property to the south of High Point.
Right. So in about 2 weeks, the heavy equipment will be gone, the signs will be down, the road will return to normal traffic and speed limits, and there will be big piles of dirt and some construction material on the side of the road, and it's probably going to be in the 45 days-ish. We'll find out what, I mean, that's essentially what the situation is. Now, this tower in the upper right,
I was looking at it.
what is that? Is that
Mr. Haas's.
when Fender's folks get the marathon, that's where they're going to put the medals, right?
Yeah, we've
I
got
see
a
that,
whole
different levels.
seating, viewing stand up there, right?
No, what is that?
That's Mr. Haas's, what do you call it? Cabana. It's still, obviously, that's being built at the same time. And just so you know, you may see some construction out there. He's still building his cabana. Just so you know, the gentleman that owns the Mandalay Island, he's
Right.
going to be building a bridge in a few months. So
wow.
you're going to see some of that being activity. So there's several things going on in the area. But I just want you to know, we'll clean up everything the best we can, recognizing we hope to be back there shortly. So we try to make sure we monitor how much money you have to redo, is what I'm trying to point out. We don't want to redo anything we don't have to. You did mention one item there that you said something that we're not going to change the speed limit at this point. We're basically at this point, because it's not only for this project, it's for the project Riverview and Raya Vista, where they're going to be taking construction equipment off the road and also. So it's not just for this project why the speed limit has been adjusted.
Okay,
And those contracts are ongoing right now.
fantastic, thank you.
All right,
Well,
thank-
so we'll get something out, right, Michelle?
I would actually, Commissioner Vice Mayor, ask the group that you're looking at, which is in charge of the communication, per their contract.
Okay, well.
Anything I do is supplemental to what they're supposed to be doing for
If
you.
I sure don't want to depend on that big flashing sign to
Yep.
say that we're building a bridge and someone's building a cabana, there's going to be big piles of dirt and the equipment's gone. It's not going to work.
I agree with you. We had to pull off of a different project that was up north in the Brevard County area. We had to pull off of a site, and any construction site that has any equipment on it is considered a protected site. If a resident walks on that site, it's a felony. You're not allowed to walk into construction zones that are posted. So, I mean, because they could get hit in the head and some really bad things could happen. So I can understand why he's pulling a lot of the material off the site, because it has to return to somewhat normal. It can't be a construction site per se anymore if you're not going to have construction going on. So it's probably going to get closest to what he described. I mean, because you can't have people walking around with equipment around, you know?
I made my statement clear that communications.
Yeah, I mean, I think in the past, I've seen them put information up on their websites. I don't know if your residents use your website a lot to get postings.
I'm going to leave it to the town manager.
Okay, I think we can put some kind of email or on the town website, and then we can also all do our part and tell everybody we see what's happening, which will be helpful too, because
Madam Mayor, if I may, the one thing I would really ask and suggest is that if we're paying for mobilization and remobilization fees, it look as close to normal as possible. So having the mounds of dirt, I recognize it's easier, but if we're already paying the fees, I'm not looking for easy, I'm looking for it to be appropriate.
okay. Thank you. All right, Commissioner Fender.
Last one, really fast. So I was just wondering if there was any possible way to share the detoured load with Kingston from Oakwood. We got one good day and it was wonderful. I mean, is it possible to do one day on, one day off, or 1 week on, 1 week off?
I mean, I think they're both
I think it's an
Sorry, do you wanna
engineering
take that?
call. I made the recommendation on that particular day that you're speaking about, due to construction that was happening on Oakwood. At the end of the day, the detours are up to the engineers.
Is it possible to
And
move
with
that detour up just one road occasionally? I'm not trying to make your life hard, and if you're welcome to say no, by the way. I'm used to it, but
Well, first of all, the road's going to be open here shortly.
Oh.
And I mean, the point is, you know, obviously, I know you all want me to make sure it's safe. The contractor's responsible for, that's one of the things. He has responsibilities even when he's not there, and he's got to send somebody up here daily. That's why you're paying for this $145,000. Those are things. He's still responsible for the site, okay? But to answer your question, we're talking about a couple weeks and the road's going to be open.
oh, that's fine.
And I think right now, we already use 2 to 3 roads there now. We're sharing it with detour signs. I mean, at least that's what I see. So if it's.
I'm just telling you, I got a lot of positive comments the day that we moved the detour up one road, the road, you know, the actual deadline road.
Okay.
And so
And we're
it
talking
took-
about
Took
the-
everybody off our road for a day.
But there's 3 roads now that have the detour signs on, right?
Yeah, but
There's-
nobody uses those other 2. They only use
I
the
do,
end.
I do.
Thank
I
you.
split it half and half.
Okay.
Because you complained, I've been using them.
I'm not complaining. I'm just saying if it's only 2 weeks, I'm not worried about it, honestly.
Okay, it's okay.
Exactly. When I go out, I use Oakwood. When I go in, I use Kingston, yeah. All right.
Good.
Anything else, Commissioner Fender? Are you
I
good?
can come up with some stuff.
That's all right, thank you.
Okay.
All right, I think that is done, so I will adjourn the meeting.